All right. Well, there you go. Another podcast. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Number
I'm
7.
Marty. He's Bruce. Welcome back for the one or two viewers that we got.
Woohoo! I think we had 11 views on our last one.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Cool.
That's nice. You're awesome.
Yeah, one of the things that I was telling him as far as I had some ideas as far as what to talk about today was kind of how I got into podcasts. I mean, not actually doing podcasts, which, I'm doing now, but listening to, because for me it was the first thing I ever watched on YouTube. There was two guys that actually got me into watching YouTube videos, because originally, I'd hear about my kids watching stupid crap on YouTube, and that's what I always thought YouTube had, was a bunch of stupid crap. But anyway, so I
all you have to do is let a kid take your phone,
right,
and then they start watching stuff, and you're like, oh.
Yeah, it's the worst stuff ever. And then now they have TikTok, and
it wasn't
TikTok's
so worse. It just, oh man, it got annoying fast.
Oh yeah,
And,
yeah. But anyway, so the first thing I ever watched was a guy who he's doing more podcasts or more video blogs or whatever you want to call it now, and he talks a lot more than he used to. It used to be that it was just footage of him doing really cool stuff, and that's Jerry Miculek.
Oh, Jerry Miculek.
Yeah, because Jerry, I knew about him as a world record holder for all these different things, and there was a bunch of videos of him doing that world record stuff. I still can watch that video where he puts 6 shots on target, does a reload, and then does 6 more shots on target, and set the world record for that. I can watch that over and over again and never get tired of it. He's an amazing man. So that kind of got me into.
He used to be on a shooting show.
Well, that was
Outdoor Network or something like that.
Where when he set that record, that was actually on the History Channel.
Yeah, was it on the History Channel? Was that show? I think so. And
yeah,
I remember that because he shot an Altoid.
Yeah,
he did the trick, the old cowboy trick, where he flipped it up in the air and shot an Altoid.
He does the whole mirror thing too.
Yeah,
shoots behind him.
Splits, playing cards.
Right. But for me, it's always been about his speed. That's amazing, especially since he is old. Right. He's a senior citizen, and man, he's
he is now. But when he was doing that, he was your age now.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think he
maybe
was
a little bit younger.
Yeah, I think he was in his 60s but I'm not sure.
I think he was a little bit older,
but
a little bit younger, because
that started me.
There's that generation where 50 looked 50. And then there was a generation before that where 50 looked 60.
Right.
And now we're at a generation where 50 looks 40. Kind of, it's kind of.
Oh yeah, I think people are. Don't get me wrong. You can go on to a lot of sites and see that people aren't taking care of themselves. But I think a lot of people are taking care of themselves better.
Well, and there's not a lot of hard labor, and I don't think, and this is maybe, there wasn't a lot of hard labor in your youth.
Right.
You weren't actually working, like getting a paycheck working when you're 7 or 8 now.
Right.
When kids of certain generations were, whether it was out on the farm, whether it was in town, you were working. Mm-hmm. If you were old enough to show up on time, you were working. It's just what was expected of you. And I think that took a lot of years off people.
Yeah.
Especially in the face. You just look at old movies and you're like, that's a 40-year-old man?
Mm-hmm.
you know, although they were 50 playing a 40-year-old man, so.
Right.
But even still, you go and you look at the time, and you look at their age when they were born, and you're like, wow, he was 40 then?
Mm-hmm.
Like William Holden.
Right.
You're like, that's 40?
Right.
That guy looks 50, 55.
Mm-hmm. Well, also, I think another thing that isn't as common now, and that prematurely aged a lot of people, was smoking.
Smoking.
Yeah.
War. I mean,
yeah.
you know, yeah, seriously, you know, war, smoking, drinking, a lot of drinking, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I'm sorry.
Oh, well, anyway.
I digress.
So that, Jerry, you know, watching him, you know, the great thing about YouTube is you get all these little things that pop up or suggest things. So I started getting into different gun channels. The first person that I got into, who's no longer around, but he was fun to watch. I mean, he was really entertaining, was FPS Russia.
I think you showed me some of his videos. Isn't he the one that had like 2 Mac 10s or something like?
Well, he had those 2 fully automatic AA-12 shotguns.
No, I thought you had a video where he had 2 like Mac 10s just hooked to a drone.
Oh yeah, there was one where he had a drone, and it was it actually shot and stuff, and he actually he flew it into a car and then pushed a button and the whole thing blew up.
Right, because I think he had like 2 submachine guns on it attached to it. It's like,
I mean,
crazy.
They make them. I mean, that's pretty neat. But another thing that so you know, he was, you know, he played a character. He pretended to be Russian and you know, had the stupid accent and everything. But he was really fun. But I mean, I'm sure a lot of people out in the world know what happened. But yeah, his channel they stopped doing it. Do you know anything about the controversy?
Do not know the controversy. I don't know because like I said, I think the only reason I watched any of his stuff was from you showing it to me.
Oh, his producer, the guy that filmed things and helped him put it together and produce everything, was mysteriously shot and killed.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there was a lot of you know. After that, there was a lot of you know,
children with sticky fingers
trying to figure out you know, who was responsible for the murder, etc. And so, you know,
Tiger King.
He didn't have any.
He's going to be the next Tiger King documentary.
Right. Well, he didn't have any desire to continue after that. So, let's see here. I mean, I think he actually is doing a blog now, or he was doing a blog where it's just him as himself, and it's more of an interview type show. But anyway, then after FPS Russia, one of the people I ran into and I still watch because he's very entertaining is because that's what I was looking for. I mean, I like shows that are, you know, kind of educational, but you know, because like Hickok 45 was another one that I found, and he likes to, you know, actually break down, you know, and show everything about a gun. You know, that's what he does, is gun reviews, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
He'll take it apart and show you everything, which is neat.
I like when he does comparisons.
Right.
But
my one of my favorites, and he has 3 different channels, is I like Demolition Ranch, and he also has Off the Ranch.
Yeah, all right.
And then he also has Vet Ranch, which I've never actually watched Vet Ranch.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that would be kind of entertaining. I mean, at one time, long time ago, I wanted to be a vet, which, you know, but when I was working as a vet assistant for a while, it's a fairly dirty job. I decided I didn't want to do that anymore. But but you know, so he does that stuff. I think he makes a lot more money now as a YouTuber than he does as a veterinarian, but I'm not positive.
Yeah. You know, I've been playing Warzone, Call of Duty Warzone, and I've started watching some guys online, and like Dr. Disrespect, Z-Laner, and some of these guys that start, and then some of them, they have these YouTube channels on how tips and tricks, you know, which has helped out quite a lot with the frustration of how come yours is not working like theirs, you know, and I mean there's a point where it's a degree of skill,
right?
But then there's, you know, it's like, how come that gun doesn't move at all and yours is all over the place, and then you start tweaking your settings, you know, and all of a sudden your gun starts to control better, and now it's just about me controlling the controller better that last little bit. And so it's like, okay, and then there's some tactic stuff, but some of the compounds, and I'm saying compounds, that these guys have built from just gaming careers is ridiculous.
Right.
That Dr. Disrespect and Z-Laner got into a $10 million tournament.
Jeez. And
came out with 210 grand. For playing Call of Duty. Mother, I could have been a contender. I could have made a decent living. I probably still could if I played it every day. When back in the day when I played every day and I was decent on it, and I'm playing on console downstairs, so I don't do controller very
right.
But when I play with the mouse,
oh yeah,
I'm
much better with a mouse.
I could be a middle tier. I could be a guy. I don't think I'd make enough money to have a compounds, but I could have enough money to actually have a healthy career playing on teams, because I can do a solid 16, 20 kills at times if I needed to with the controller. On the console down there, I can get 8, 10. Sometimes I get 0. It's amazing how you just get stuck in spawn cycles.
Well, it's funny you mention all this, because that actually takes me into more of my natural progression. So I'm watching Demolition Ranch and all this kind of stuff, and Demo Ranch's real life younger brother is a online first person shooter guy. God, I can't remember his name. Anyway, but he also is the guy that's usually behind the camera on Demolition Ranch. So he does both. And I can't remember his name. I apologize for Matt's younger brother. I was going to name drop a bunch of names on this, and I can't remember his name. But so I started watching him, you know, and he was playing on different teams and stuff when he was playing different shooting games, first-person shooter games, and him, you know, playing with other players. You know, he would usually hook up or play with people that were big in the industry, whatever you want to call that industry, and that's when I was introduced to you know, some of the bigger names in first-person shooter things, and that was like one of my favorite people to watch. It's mainly because he has a British accent. I know that's stupid, but he's fun to listen to. Is Jack Frags, and so that's how I started listening to him. But he actually likes to play with these other guys who have their own channel. His favorite people to play with are also really fun to listen to. There's a guy called Stone Mountain, and
I haven't seen him.
And he's from somewhere in the U.S. I don't know where. He also likes to play with Aculite. And I think he likes to play with. I think he likes to play with Aculite because that guy's a freaking god. I mean, he wins a lot.
I watch some of these guys. You know, it's fun to watch. It's fun to watch these pros, right? And then it's fun to watch them complain that somebody must be hacking
Well, Jack never complains about.
Well, it's like I watch some of these guys like, oh, that guy's hacked. Do you see that? Do you see his gun just snap over to my head and shoot me?
What?
So he's like, that has to be something, and it's like, I've been watching you for 10 minutes now, and I think you're a hacker.
Well, it's funny because there's a guy that has a channel. One of the recommends that popped up on YouTube was there was a guy. All he does is he goes and he plays, because hacking is a big problem there. When he gets killed by somebody, he'll just watch them and see if they're hacking, because you can
Yeah. Well, they watched Nick Merckx. His team got annihilated by this one guy, and then they spectated him, and they were talking to him like, you've got to have a bot on, and the guy's like, shakes the camera up and down, and they're like, there's no way, and he's like, no, and then they're like, no, you got to be doing this, and he's like, no, you got to be doing this, and he was telling them exactly what he was doing, what he wasn't doing, and they just sat and watched him. We watched him for another 10 minutes go on and win, but it was just like,
I've only seen one video where Jack actually complained about, because he says he runs into hackers, and when he runs into hackers, he usually just switches over to somebody else. But there was this one video that he showed where, because this hacker kept following him from room to room to room, just to get online, I guess, to be famous. I don't know.
Just to troll him.
Yeah, but that guy, was doing like weird God mode type stuff where,
shoot through walls.
Shoot through walls.
There used to be a bot back in Modern Warfare where you just stand in one circle, and then it would light up everybody, and so you could just shoot across the.
Right.
Yeah. But.
Yeah. So let's see here. Wow, going further down the rabbit hole. So just to do a little bit more name dropping, I actually wrote down names of people. I could just look up on my phone because it's all on there too, because I subscribe and everything. But as far as
do you ring the bell?
Yes, for some. Like another guy I like. He doesn't do much anymore. I love 22 Blinkster. He was great. Never heard. And how about the AK guy?
There's a lot of names that I don't know, but I have probably watched a video or two.
Well,
so there's a lot of people out there like that.
There's that one guy, Honest Outlaw, that I got you.
Honest Outlaw, right?
Yeah.
And then after going back and seeing, it was like we had that conversation. You're like, Honest Outlaw, so and so, so and so. I'm like, I don't know who those people are. And then I went on YouTube and a video popped up and was like, oh yeah, oh that's that. Oh yeah, I've watched that guy. I've watched that guy. I watched that guy.
Right.
I'm bad at names. I'm bad at remembering a lot of names.
Well, if you want, there's a guy that's quite entertaining. He's anyway, Brandon Herrera. He's the AK guy. His channel, it's called. But he does gun memes and all kinds of stuff, and he's funny. He's really funny. But yeah, those are.
What seems to turn me off on a lot of guys is you get this great headline for the video, blah 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 blah. You're like, oh, awesome, and then it takes 10 minutes to start talking about it. Or they take.
That's what I like about Honest Outlaw. He goes right into it.
Right into it, right? Yep. So I'm willing to watch some of his stuff,
Right.
It's like
there's not very many guns that he hasn't reviewed. I mean, he's put together a lot. It's just him and his wife.
It's like Tim Pool. I'll watch a lot of his videos, but now it gets to the point where it's like, here's the article, and then sometimes I have to scrub like 5 minutes.
Right.
Of just listen, I don't need to hear all your crap. Just, what's the article? What's the article about? Okay, and then scrub some more. Sometimes he'll read down, and then he goes on one of his rants. So I scrub until I see the article move in the thumbnail, and I play it again. Because when he just starts talking, I'll just read the article.
Right.
And then I'll scrub, and then I'll read the article. It's like I kind of just listen to hear the gist of whether the article is good or not, right? Or whether it's factual, or what part of it's factual, what part of it's not factual. And then it's like, oh, okay, then I go off to the next video. But
that's one of the nice things about Tim is, he has his whole show, which I listen to the whole show because, I just wear an earpiece at work, and I can work and listen. That was another thing that I actually progressed into podcasts when the coronavirus hit. Because I was still working. I work as a restaurant manager, and fortunately, the restaurant I work for didn't close down. We stayed open for to-goes, takeout. It did affect a lot of other people because, like our serving staff and stuff were given a vacation. Basically, they were actually paying for them even after they were off. But anyway, which was really cool, great company. Being the manager, I was one of the people that had to basically stay on and cook food for people that were ordering online, etc. And so I had to have something to do when there was downtime, so I started looking for podcasts. At first, I was just looking for stuff that would be entertaining, so I ran through every comedian on YouTube, listening to old Dave Chappelle stuff, and I love comedians, listen to Bert Kreischer, and then I was listening to different people, Joe Rogan, etc. Some of his old stand-up. But what was cool was I'm kind of a history nut, so I was looking for I don't know if it popped up or what, but it was recommended for me to go and look at this thing called Biographics, which was it was almost like a History Channel type show where this guy tells you stories about some historical character, his biography, and it was really neat. And then they actually had a sister channel that they talk about constantly called Geographics, which talks about a specific location in history. And so I listened to everything on Biographics and Geographics, and that's a very cool channel. If you ever want to look at that, it's really neat. But then after that, kind of because that shutdown that was supposed to last for 2 weeks ended up lasting months. And so we're still not fully operational, but
we got shut back down to orange here.
Yeah, I know. But then I started listening to Joe Rogan was my first podcast.
Yeah.
Where it's and I love Joe because he'll talk to anybody. We were discussing one of the first people that he listened to was Alex Jones. I like hearing Joe Rogan and Alex talk because. Sometimes if you're actually watching it, because most of the time I was just listening to it, but sometimes it's fun to watch because Alex will be saying something and Joe Rogan's eyes just get so big, like, holy crap, what am I hearing?
Well, I think Joe does what a lot of people that used to listen to Alex Jones way back in the day do. And that is, how did he get to this?
Right.
And if you watch a lot of that, what Joe does is he's like, okay, stop, explain that.
Right.
Stop, explain that.
Exactly.
And he does that
he's really good at it.
Right. Well, he does that because he knows that 10 years, 20 years before, he was very coherent and concise about that stuff. And now it's just all up there, and he just rumbles it all together and mashes it up, and there's all these other things that he's got going on, and so I stopped listening to to Alex at the same time. Well, I stopped listening to Rush a long time before that.
Oh yeah, I should have started out with that because one of the things that got me, another thing that kind of got me into podcasts is the conservative talk radio.
Yeah, conservative talk radio, because I used to listen to Rush way back in the early 90s, mid-90s.
Yeah, I lived in Sacramento.
Yeah, and he used to have his 3-hour show, and it was great. And then all of a sudden, his 3-hour show was 3 hours, but 2 hours of it was
on the radio. And
I'm right. I was right. And then a half hour was, well, actually, an hour of it became ads.
Yeah. An
hour of it was, I was right. I told you I was right. Didn't I say I was right? I was right. And then a half hour of it became, I'm a prognosticator. Pretty much I'm a prophet, blah, 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 blah. And then he took some calls and an introduction. And he never talked about one thing.
You know what would be...
He would stop talking about the issues. I will
tell you right now, and I wish that everybody could hear it, I would love to see Rush Limbaugh go on Joe Rogan's show. Just because I want to see them just have a conversation. Because one of the things that, I appreciate what Rush does because he has the biggest show in conservative talk radio. But it's very structured. But I would love to just hear him talk in an unstructured way.
You know, I think would blow a lot of people's minds.
Shapiro goes on Rogan. And, because on Shapiro's show, he's very structured, just like Limbaugh, he does it a certain way, and he has to have advertiser and all that kind of stuff. But just to hear him talk with Joe is fucking great.
Have you watched Glenn Beck's podcast, where he talks with people for about an hour and a half?
No, is it like Joe's, where they just bullshit?
They just sit down together, and it's a little bit more structured.
Right.
But because he really wants to either talk about something or he wants you to learn who that person is. It's not just blah blah blah. It's kind of a little bit more structured, but he's had some really good ones.
Nice.
He sat down with Tim Pool, and Tim's says it all the time.
Right.
I went on Glenn Beck's show.
Right.
If you would have told me 10 years ago I was going to go on Glenn Beck's show, I would have rolled my eyes and just laughed at you. But oh crap! I think I lost my train of thought.
Limbaugh?
Yeah. Oh. Who I think would blow people's brains on that show?
On Rogan.
On Rogan, because you just sit there and listen to him. Would be Newt Gingrich.
Yeah.
If you ever just listen to any of his lectures he's done on a historical event or historical things, his mind is amazing on that stuff, and I think you'd really dig some of his lectures that he's done on that. And the other one I think would be surprised, because I'm surprised I didn't know until until Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away, but I didn't know Ted Cruz was a constitutional lawyer.
No, I knew that.
And not only that he's a but
right,
a high level constitution, if he wasn't Ted Cruz, he could probably be on the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
I was really surprised about that. So I think somebody like that would be a fascinating interview for Joe, because
that's just it. Speaking of interviewers, because Joe Rogan, I honestly don't think he interviews anybody. He just talks to people. He'll ask questions once in a while, but
he does to some, and I think that's the only reason he ever gets backlash and in trouble with a lot of people, is that he'll run after and attack this person, but then when this person says something, he just lets it go. Right. And I understand why he does that and why, but it's sometimes it's why would you,
Yeah.
It's one show he had this person on, and they were talking about the Sphinx thing.
Mm-hmm.
But he was like, this geologist was saying that
The water.
professors, whatever, have lie and are lying. Omitly. What's it called when you lie on purpose? I can't. But they're lying on purpose right now because it protects their books,
Right.
and stuff like that. And then,
Because if anything contradicts their books, it's Yeah.
well, it cuts their sales down, and so they're lying on purpose. They won't look at facts, or they won't look at any other evidence or side of it. And then not 2 hours later, he had another person on his podcast, and when they said, "I don't believe that, I want verified facts," he went apeshit all over her about, well, the scientists from every university says this is how it has to be. Well, didn't you just agree with the guy that said...
Hancock, yeah.
No, it wasn't Graham,
okay.
But it was that Schock,
Right.
David Schock.
Right.
But it's like, didn't you just agree with him that they lie to protect themselves and for money? And yet for her, you just lambast? Why? Because it fits your ideology. And I think that's where he gets in trouble. That's where that interview actually is the interview that stopped making me watch him every day. And I'll only watch them with certain guests, and even then, I don't watch them all the time.
I'm kind of excited. One of the ones that dropped today, because I checked it this morning. He has Graham Hancock on there again.
Oh,
I'm gonna listen to that immediately.
Well, you know what? You know what the thing about Graham though is,
I love Graham.
Gosh, So, if Alex went from this to kook, crazy nutter butter kook, and other people have gone from that to this, I believe that's what's happened with Graham. As soon as he starts talking about DMT and everything, he sound, and then it's just that's it.
I just love listening to that guy.
I like a lot of it, but then it's just like
But yeah,
this stuff makes me roll my eyes at some things. And
one of the guys that I ran into on YouTube, also, as far as interviewers, people that actually interview people, I would say, and this is a bold statement, I would say the best interviewer on YouTube is the guy from Hot Ones.
Oh, from the
First We Feast, yeah.
The wings?
The Hot Ones.
I've never actually watched any of those.
He asks the best questions, and he does these, he does all this research on these people, and he'll ask them a question, and every one of them will go, "Man, you really did your research." And 1,000 of them will say, "You are the best interviewer I've ever met." And it's true. He is fantastic.
I haven't watched any of those.
And he's one of those people. He is another one of those people, since he usually does interviews. I would love to see him on a show like Rogan, just talking.
Just talking, yeah.
Because his name's Sean Evans, and he is fantastic.
Yeah. I think you'd be interested in Beck's podcast. He's had some interesting people on there.
I like Beck's show.
Right. I know you like Beck's show, but I think you would really like the podcast. He just sits down and Beck's problem, I think, if he has a problem, to me, it's because he did come from mainstream radio to mainstream TV.
And he still wants to be structured.
Well, it's not so much structured. He wants to be polished and showy.
Right.
And so because of that, it doesn't come across as authentic.
Right.
Sometimes. And on the podcast, you do get some authentic moments with them.
Right.
With the guests. And so then I can match up with it. You know what I mean? And which then allows me to watch some of the Blaze stuff a little bit more.
I'm glad you said that.
little bit more even keeled. You know, I just don't. Because, you know, I've talked with him before, you know. Alex, you know, back in mid-2000s, early 2000s was right on with a lot of what's happening right now. He was telling us, watch out, watch out, watch out.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, you really want to head this off now? You need to be looking at Ron Paul.
Right.
You need to be looking at libertarian like him,
Mm-hmm.
who wants to challenge the establishment, drain the swamp, blah 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 blah. But everything that everybody picked Trump for now, he was telling you that was Ron Paul back in the day. His,
I'd agree.
you know, and you know, the left side is going to bash him, whatever. But the vitriol he got from Glenn Beck of calling him a dumb old senile man and things like that on his show just derailed that campaign. And it wasn't 6 months later that he was telling everybody, that's who we all should have voted for. Well, duh, but you called him a bumbling old man.
Right.
And it was like, that was, you know, I took a hiatus from that guy for about 15 years, 10 years, and it's taken me a long time to get back to where I'll listen to him.
Right.
Of course, he had the crash.
Mm-hmm.
He went, and then he crashed again. You know, he's humbled himself quite a bit.
Oh, yeah.
Except for the little ascot, crazy, stupid stuff he still wears, and you're like, Glenn, what's with the fashion show? Just stop.
Yeah.
Just put on a shirt
Right.
and a pair of jeans, sit down and talk with people.
Right.
And you will reach more people across both lines
Yeah.
than you know. But when you dress like that, it's like it's so loud you can't even. All you do is look at that like, oh my gosh, what the heck are you
Because
wearing?
that's the one person that you can say, if you wanted to have a spectrum where you're talking about shows that were truly not biased, Rogan's got that all beat. I mean, he will have both sides on, and he'll talk to them with no problem. And it's, you know, I mean, it's great. The only thing is, you know,
To a degree.
one of the things that
To a
actually
degree.
struck me as funny, though, is he's had Crowder on twice, and the first time everything was fine.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, in the second Crowder interview, they were talking about, I think it was just legalization of drugs.
Well, he asked.
And that was a hot topic, I guess, for Crowder, because he became irate.
No, it was because of Joe. It's because Joe asked him a question about, well, what? Because I think Crowder got in some hot water or whatever, and Joe asked him something about what was one thing that you'd go back and change, or what would you have gone back? And he says legalization of marijuana, you know, drugs. I would have held more to my stance on it. And everybody knows Joe's love for pot.
Yeah.
So, unclick the hinge. You're a bad person. And then he just goes off on him. It's the same thing he did with the person that I was talking about. Climate change. Unclick the hinge, and he went off on her. And she said very coherent things. She's like, where did you get that information from? Did you get it from a .org or a .gov site, or did you get it from a blah 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 website? Well, I don't know. Well, then why do I have to listen to it? She's like, give me verified facts and information. Don't just spout opinion. And he just went crap shit on her. It's the same way he went on Crowder. You know, why can't somebody believe that marijuana is not good for you? You know, that's like old Stephen A. Smith on even though he's gone off the rails on a lot of things, you know, lately. But Max Kellerman used to sit there and tell him, look, it shouldn't be a Schedule I drug, blah, 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 blah. And Stephen A.'s like, look, I grew up in a community where I saw people go from that to this to that to destroyed lives.
Right.
You can't tell me that you can't start here and destroy your life. He's like, I've seen it. No, you haven't. You know, you want to know what racism is? That's racism. Max Kellerman's the most racist man in America. He will not let a black man have an independent thought about something. You know, Kyrie Irving said the earth was flat. Who cares if it is or not? It's fun to sit and go down the rabbit hole on YouTube, isn't it? It is a blast. Some of those guys have some pretty fascinating concepts when you start to sit and think about it. If you don't know enough physics and math, you start going, hey, you know, that sounds like kind of interesting. But Max told him he was stupid, that he couldn't possibly have an idea like, couldn't think like that. That's racism. That's not allowing him to have an independent thought, whether it's right or wrong, entertain it. That's the whole point of this. The whole point of America is, you think that's real? Oh, okay, whatever. As long as you don't make it mandatory in my school to learn, right? Just have fun. It's fun. It's actually quite engaging. It's fun to listen to. And then you hear somebody say one little thing. It's like, it's the reason why Joe has a 3-hour podcast or a 2-hour podcast, because blah, 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 blah. This guy is on his rails, and then he says one thing, you're like, bing, 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 bing.
Right.
That's where it gets you. You know what I mean? Because you'll slip. So, you know, it's just, you know, and he went after Crowder on that. That's the reason why he went after Crowder, because he dared say that his sacred weed might not be healthy because Joe's successful.
Right.
And he smokes it every day, so that means everybody who smokes it must be able to be successful. So, which he has later countered that argument. He's later said, well, maybe not. And even through Sober October, has realized that, well, maybe I am a little more productive when I'm not on it, but I'm angrier. So, you know, I need to be...
Tyson said the same thing.
So I need to be less...
When he had Mike Tyson on there.
Yeah, well, you know, a lot of people don't have his chemical imbalances either, you know. If it's not weed, Mike needs to be on something. You saw that... You know, there was an interview he did for Real Sports on HBO. He's sitting across that one guy that has the salty hair, and the guy asked him a couple questions, and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. And he asked Mike a question. Mike answered it and then looked at him and said, "You have to go now." And he looked at him like, "You understand why, right?" And he just like, closed his book, got up. He had triggered something in Mike's brain.
Oh yeah.
That if that guy stayed there, he was going to come over
and crush his skull,
rip every limb from his body, and you just saw this whole demeanor change in his body, and it was just like goosebumps. Goosebumps right now thinking about it. How chilly it was. I was like, oh my gosh.
Oh yeah. I mean,
so.
Because
I remember there's an incident when he had to go down. He got in trouble because he went down and yelled at his kid's kindergarten teacher. Can you imagine being that poor lady?
Rogan on the last podcast was talking about, he was talking about his table. His table that they sit around in his new studio was 4 feet wide. And he had Mike Tyson come back in, and you know, the last time he had Mike Tyson on, Mike Tyson had retired, and he was smoking weed, and he was happy, and everything was great. And you know, Rogan was asking him stuff like, "So do you work out still?" And he's like, "No, I don't want to reignite my ego." And he's like, "Okay, that's cool." And
rolling his eyes like, "Yeah, right,
and then,
whatever."
And then, you know, fast forward, and he started working out again, and did reignite his ego, and you know, and oh my God, he looks fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And
he hits that bag so fast and so hard, and you're like, at the fifth, how does it? you think he's fast enough to actually get back. You just don't know if he actually is or not, because you can't see it like against another 20-year-old pro and real.
Right.
But just from the optics, it's like, holy
I
crap.
think he could still crush people. But
if
anyway,
he can get up under the 6-footers, they're in trouble. But he's got to get. That's hard. That's hard to get into the 6.
Right. But anyway, so he Rogan had him on again, and he was jacked. And Rogan was talking about these muscles in the forearms, and he said it looked like a golf ball, was underneath his skin. That these, because all these little muscles that you use, to punch, were just rippling. And he said that after that interview, they went back and made that table 6 feet wide because he was so close and so intimidating that they had to change the table. I thought that was hilarious.
I read a book by a writer. There was a while there when I was really into operators, like Demo Dick Marcinko.
Oh yeah.
Back in the day, and then some other guys that were Andy McNair.
I would love to see
Andy McNabb, a British SAS guy. Then there's this other guy, this American guy that wrote, and he talked about these operators. He's like, you'll be sitting like on a military base or whatever, and surrounded by thousands of soldiers or whatever. And then these operators walk in the room. And it's almost like a shark entering into the area.
Mm-hmm.
Everything, all of a sudden, everybody becomes hyper aware that alpha predators are moving about them. Mm-hmm. And he's like, there's just a whole nother thing about those guys over there that are, and so yeah, I can imagine it must be like that. You're just kind of like, hi Mike, how are you doing, Mike? Can I get you something now, Mike?
Right. And then it was funny because the president retweeted one of the things that Tyson said on Joe Rogan's podcast which was, he didn't make a comment on it or anything. He just tweeted it. He just showed the clip, and the clip was where Mike Tyson was talking about when he beats somebody that it feels like he's having an orgasm. And Trump just like, I'll just put that right there.
Oh crap!
It's like, oh my God, no comment, no nothing. Oh my God, but it's funny, because just by this conversation you can tell, because Rogan is the on top as far as podcasts are concerned, and yeah, you can tell just because he's been 90% of this conversation.
Do you like his new set?
No. And he's kind of commented on it also, and he says it's very
red.
Well, no, he said it's very
red.
Right, but people either like it or hate it. And
I don't.
He doesn't like it. He doesn't like it either. He said so. But they put it together in real quick, because he moved from California to Texas.
Well, he praised Jamie for designing it and putting it all together and making it.
Well, yeah, and because of the speed he did it.
Oh, I thought it's just, oh my gosh. If you ever want to make your show stop being about just a conversation of two guys in a room and make it look like a scripted interview, that's how you do it.
Oh, it's funny.
Change your background to the point where it's no longer just you in a room.
It looks like a set.
Yeah.
Right.
Not just a set. Some overly polished CNN crap.
Right.
It's so distracting. So I don't know. Maybe his eyes are so hazed over with the pot that he needs the red in there to help with the. I don't know, but
But no, I mean, I don't know. That's the great thing about a set is he can change it.
Hopefully he will. Because, oh man. You know what, Joe? Make that set, make it feel like you're in Texas, in Austin.
Yeah. Put a big old star behind you.
No, just make it feel something Texas-y or something. I don't know. You went there for your freedom.
Have a picture of
you went there
Chuck
for your
Norris
freedom.
As Walker, Texas Ranger.
Right. Riding a bull, eating a big old steak. You went there for your freedom, and then you have that communist red behind you. What's the duality of that? I don't understand that stuff. I don't know. I know people. Well, people just read into things, and I understand people reading.
I don't know if Joe ever thought it was going to be a visual medium, because I think it's always in his mind has been a podcast.
See, that's the thing. I have listened to some podcasts, but I'd rather watch the podcast. So I'm a visual podcast person.
I just like to listen.
I know that Jones was probably the first stuff I Rush back in the day with his talk show. Then he had this newsletter thing that he put out that you realize really wasn't worth the money. And then Alex, and then I used to watch the Totally Rad show.
I'd never even heard of this.
Yeah, if you want to, if their videos are still up, go try to find the Totally Rad show. It was an hour and a half, and it was 3 guys. Their premise was 3 aliens come and want to find out what is happening in the world of entertainment, pop culture. And so they would review movies, review TV shows, review video games, anything kind of nerd culture. And it was 3 guys all in Hollywood at the time trying to make it, 2 trying to be actors, 1 wants to be a director. And the director, Dan Trachtenberg, he went on to do the Cloverfield sequel. What was it? 10 Cloverfield Lane? Was that thing? Yeah, 10 Cloverfield Lane.
John Goodman, yeah.
Yeah, that was Dan Trachtenberg.
He directed that? Or?
Yeah, directed it, yeah. Little Dan Trachtenberg. Yeah.
Very good job.
And he's done some other stuff. I think he's worked on some Grimm episodes, I think. And then the one guy, the only thing I ever saw him act in, he got a little bit part in some serial cop show where he played a cop doing an interview, Jeff Kanata. And then Alex Albrecht. He dabbled a lot of stuff. He did a lot of apps. He really got into apps. He made an app where he had his dog lick his he videoed his dog licking his sliding glass door, so that when you played it on your phone, it looked like he was licking the back of your of your screen. Right. So he's done a lot of stuff like that. If you ever seen a little short movie on YouTube with the Power Rangers, and it's the last Power Ranger, the red Power Ranger, and it has the guy from Psych, the cop from Psych, plays the Oliphant. Not Oliphant. No.
No, his name is.
It's
I can't remember his name.
But Osmond.
Yeah.
He plays a Power Ranger, and he's sending out the signal of we've lost, we weren't able to get the job done, blah 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 blah. He just a little 4-minute short or whatever. He made that, but it was I loved that. I loved the long form factor. And then for some reason they said that everybody was only watching things in 15 minutes, and so they cut the show down to little 15 minutes, and it used to be an hour and a half long, and then it got down to like 45 minutes because of all the little chunks, and then they just stopped doing it. It's just too hard to do. And at the same time, Alex did another show where it was Dig, where he did with Kevin Rose, and those two would sit on a couch and they read Dig articles. So Dig was a thing where on a news site, here's all these different stories that come out. You hit the button, dig it, and then that would move it up, trending, right? So it's what was trending. So they would sit and they would talk about articles that Dig dug that week, and that's where I learned Edward Forty Hands. I watched them play it. So they would sit there with, you ever heard of Edward Forty Hands? So you take two ice cold 40 beers, in glasses, and you duct tape them to either hand.
I saw that on a movie.
Yeah, it's been on movies and stuff like that, but they would play it on there, and they would read and have to try to drink it fast enough so they could hold it so that the hand would stop freezing, and just get wasted reading articles.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what movie that was that I saw that on.
It was in, they did it on the show How I Met Your Mother.
Well, yeah, but no, this was an actual movie, and I watched it just a little while ago. Just trying to remember which one it was. But
they did that, and so I watched that. I loved both of those shows because I liked the longer format shows. And from there, it's just like, do I really watch? I watched Kevin Smith there for a while. His Fat Man on Batman show, I really liked it, but lately it's been kind of so I haven't watched it.
He does that What's in the Box thing with Jason Mewes.
That got
old pretty quick.
Old fast.
I mean, if you like toys, which I mean, sometimes they'd have.
I love toys, but just put some freaking awesome toys in the box.
Right. Well, I mean, some of them were and some of them weren't.
Well, the problem with the problem with Kevin, and I like
seems like
Kevin.
He was trying to be too structured too, though.
Well, it's not that.
I would just like to listen to him and Jason Mewes talk.
And that's what I like. I used to like listening to him and Mark Bedard just talk, because Mark really understands writing, and between the two of them talking about writing and directing and stuff like that, you get so much knowledge of how to shape your craft. And that's what I watched them for. I was watching them to learn how to shape my craft. And once again, I love politics, but I really don't like hearing a lot of other people's politics a lot of times, So that's usually what will derail me on a lot of things, But crap. Oh, with the boxing, it's just like, give me some good toys to look at. Right. And not only that, but
they did one where that was
Kevin
Teenage
Smith,
Mutant Ninja Turtles, and that was cool.
Kevin likes all those WB, CW, DC shows. Yeah. And he's worked on them. Yeah. He's gone and directed them, and
Jake Black actually worked with him.
And I understand. And maybe as a kid I would have liked those shows, but as an adult, when he gushes over it and says, "I can't believe we get to see these things," it's like, I agree. It'd be awesome to be able to. I loved when I got to see cartoon, come to life. There was that Flash show in the late '90s or late '80s on TV. I watched that. I watched the Hulk growing up. Watched Wonder Woman growing up. Watched all that. But man, it's got to be a little bit better. I watched the first season of Flash, and then couldn't make it into Gotham. Oh my gosh, the commercials for Arrow. You talk about somebody thinking they're Batman, trying to be, it's my city. Oh, shut up. You know, I
think that
every commercial for that show,
Arrow and Batman should get together and see who has the deeper voice.
Made me just be like, why would I watch this? But, you know, he just gushes over it, you know, because he'd rather have that than nothing. And sometimes I would rather have nothing over destroying my world of it up here.
Right.
You know, they complain about fanboys complaining about stuff like that. And just wait till it's your world that you love so much gets shattered, you know? Wait till they remake Harry Potter and see how you like it. And completely change things that you think were hard canon or hard this.
Right.
And you're going to go crazy. You're not going to sit back and be like, well, you know, you just kind of have to think about it differently. My nephew has a friend that comes over, and I love talking with him because he sees like the new Star Wars movies in a whole new light. He loves them, and he talks about them, and I can understand why he likes them when he explains it the way he does, and it's like, I get it. Right. I understand why you like it. I can't get past this. I can't get past that. You know, but so I watch all kinds of stuff, you know, and then my interest will shift on something, and so I have a really bad back, and being able to find things that I'm going to be able to do with my kid is getting limited. And I thought about things that I used to like, and I looked up remote control cars again, and I was like, hey, you know, so I bought a cheap one off Amazon, and that kid loves that thing.
Oh, of course.
And so it was like, well, there's something that we could do that wouldn't require me to
run around,
to go, run, chase after him,
right.
And maybe something that we could do together.
Yeah.
So I've been heavily into watching car videos. I'll turn on some guys that are reviewing cars that are just running them, and he'll sit there on this little table we have down there and just lays on his stomach.
Watches
them.
That's cool.
And so we've sat and watched.
Any good names that you can drop on that?
Oh, Kevin Talbot, RC Dude 81, the Aussie RC guys, I think is what it's called. We really like Kevin Talbot. He's this British guy, and he's very kind of
once again, those British guys.
But
man, they're fun to watch.
We've sat and watched him, Earl Moorhead. We've sat and watched him repair his cars.
Oh, cool!
Just break it all down, put it all back together, and the kid just sits there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, he's not running it. He's not sending them. And to watch these guys fling $1,300 across the 50 feet you're just like, what are you doing? It's like, oh my gosh. There's one video where Kevin is out there with all of his friends, and they're sending their cars off this giant ramp. Just giant, like a 15-foot ramp. And they're seeing how far they can fling it. And the video is entitled $10,000 Destruction.
All right.
So the price, you know, they're just...
Yeah.
It's an expensive hobby.
That's
But it's just crazy to me. But these guys, you know, you see all these movies. Well, how much money do you really make on YouTube? Well, majority of people don't make nothing. Mm-hmm. And then there's a whole section of people that just make a scratch.
Right.
And then there's the special few. And when we say make compounds, Joe has put together 2 compounds now from YouTube money. Disrespect. You see him in his Lamborghini compound. There's some other gamer that one of my channels showed up, and he bought this office freaking building.
Right.
I think it's 4 stories, and to hold gaming tournaments and gaming things and all things gaming inside of it and blah 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 blah. He didn't buy a corner office. He didn't buy.
Right.
It's the whole freaking building.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
These guys. So yeah. So I don't know. There's podcasts, which is funny, that I have set aside to listen to that I haven't gone and listened to. There's some pretty interesting people out there. One guy, he's in a lot of TV shows. I'm trying to think of what he's really famous for.
What will we do without our phones? I mean, jeez.
Oh my gosh. He's bald, he's wearing glasses, you know, he's a funny guy. You see him he was the principal from Glee.
I never watched Glee, sorry.
Oh gosh. He talks about going to I saw him talk about going to the grocery store once, and a guy had decided that today he was going to die by cop. And to die by cop, he was going to go to this grocery store and just find somebody and randomly shoot them.
Yeah.
He happened to be that guy. He came in, pointed a gun at him, and was about to shoot him, and those two started having a conversation. And he got out of it, but it was like, I was like, okay.
Did you find the name yet?
No, it didn't come up.
I mean, if this show is all about name dropping, which is kind of what it is, then you need to find him.
I know Sue was vice principal for. Maybe he was this. Oh, let's see here. I need to go back to. But he's been on that '70s show. He's been.
Really?
Yeah, he was. If you've watched that '70s show, if you know it good enough, so his sister. What's his sister's name?
The blonde.
The blonde. She goes to college, and her college professor comes back to try to get her to go back to school. He's the guy who scratches on things.
I think I have a picture in my head now, but I don't know his name.
But yeah, so he. Oh my gosh! So if you want to watch a great documentary, there's a great documentary called "That Guy in That Movie." I think that's what it's called. It really is, and it's. They go and they talk to these actors that everybody knows. I'm seriously. They go and go, oh, yeah. So in the first X-Men movie, the senator.
Well, there used to be
the guy with the white hair. Do you remember him?
Right.
So he's been in tons of things. Do you know his name?
Well, what's funny is
No.
there's a guy but unfortunately I do know his name, so it kind of ruins the whole bit. But
Stephen Tobolowsky.
Is that the guy
Mm-hmm.
that we've been trying to figure out?
Let me get his picture here.
At least show me a picture, and I'll tell you what he's in. But there's that one actor. He's in everything that his brother does. Oh,
he's in everything, right? Stephen Tobolowsky. He's in everything.
He was actually in. He was the guy at the very beginning of Sixth Sense.
Yeah, I mean.
And then he was also in he
Groundhog Day. He's the guy that's trying to sell the insurance.
Right. Yeah, he's And there was one Steven Seagal movie where he plays a serial killer. Anyway.
He was in Spaceballs? Huh.
As what?
I don't know.
Just one of the random Spaceballs, probably. Watch out for that first step. It's a doozy.
I don't know. I'm thinking he might have been.
That was from Groundhogs.
I think he might have been.
Bing.
You know when he's at who's firing? Who's the gunner? And he gets up and the guy's cross-eyed.
Here you go. What's his name?
Asshole.
He's an asshole, sir.
Yeah.
That's his name. Major asshole.
Yes, sir. You name it. He's.
How many assholes do I have on this ship? Yo.
I mean, this list is ridiculous. He's been in, but.
Right.
So that's a podcast that I had set aside to go listen to, but because it's a podcast, and sometimes it's like, well, then I just gotta sit there and do something. If I don't have anything to sit and do, I don't listen to it. But there's times when it's like, well, then I'm gonna end up just listening to it instead of doing what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
So it's like I can't be distracted from the drawing.
Oh yeah, podcasts are great for when you're doing physical labor, but if you're like, I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't be able to like draw a picture and listen to a podcast or whatever, but
Well, sometimes.
like when I'm doing the dishes at home or when I'm doing laundry or doing all kinds of stuff, instead of having the TV on for background noise, which is most of the time what I turn it on for, I'll listen to a podcast. And also, you know, when I'm working out, podcasts are great. I mean, most people talk about music as something that they listen to when they're working out, but no, podcasts are better.
Well, even with music, so there was like the seven, they call them the 7 old men for Disney. They were the guys, the core old guys that did all the Bambi, Snow White, you know, all the old classics that
the big 7
galvanized. They're, well, not the 7 movies, but 7 old men. So there were 7 animators. And one of them, I guess he had some guy interviewing him one, and he was sitting there drawing, and some guy asked him about music, and he goes, "How can I listen to music when I'm doing my job?" Like for him, that would be distracting.
Really? And
take him away from every bit of focus that he needs to do to put into his artwork.
Because I find that when I'm writing, you know, because I type on a computer, if you guys remember. Music.
Can you have music?
I'll listen to certain. No, I prefer without words more. Right. But I'll listen. You know, depending on what kind of scene that I'm writing, I'll listen to music that will inspire me for that scene. Mm-hmm. You know.
Well, yeah, that makes sense.
When I listen to music, I see movies in my head.
I do that. You know, there's times when I'm drawing, it's like if I want to draw an energetic scene, put on energetic music, you know. Let's go get this, you know. But there is times when I'm trying to focus so hard that I can't have any distractions.
Right. Yeah, sometimes silence is the nice thing.
You know, people sometimes I think that, well, with any grand profession, you know, music sometimes just can get in the way, or anything can get in the way. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you have to focus, and I think people make it look too easy, make everything look too easy. You know, some writers can sit down and just blah 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 blah, and you think it's the greatest thing, but if it really had to be held up to something, you'd be like, oh man, this wouldn't even make it on the CW, you know, type thing. You know what I mean? But you read it and like, oh, this is amazing, right? Right. It's like, so there's that type of writing, and then that same writer can sit and write something. Ooh, that's mainstream.
Right.
You know, that gets you on a mainstream channel. Boom. Oh, now you're on a cable channel. There's a movie, but not. Now there's a. You know what I mean? So, I think, you know, it's the same thing with art sometimes. You know, you can push stuff out, and people are like, yeah, that's great. And you can see it. You can see it in other people's artwork too. It's like, yeah, well, that was about 50% half-assed.
Yeah.
And so,
but it's funny. This is kind of getting kind of weird off subject. Just something you said that kind of hit me. John Leguizamo, great comedian, great actor. He once was doing an interview where he was talking about the time that he worked with Steven Seagal. They worked in that movie. I don't even remember.
Under Siege?
No, it was the one
No,
with the
the
airplane.
president.
It was the airplane, and it was Kurt Russell was actually the
Yeah.
star. But anyway, there's at the very beginning of the movie, they're all part of the SEAL team, and he's the commander, and they go and they kill a bunch of people and stuff. And anyway, he was working with Seagal, and he goes to this place and to pick up Seagal to go to some other place, and Seagal comes out of this room, to meet up with him, and says, "I just read the best script I've ever read in my life." And was almost like, "Really, man? Wow, that's great." He's like, "Who wrote it?" And then he's like, "I did."
I did.
It's like, oh my God. I mean, anyway, but for everything, all the problems that Seagal has, he's still one of my favorite action movie stars. I mean, sure, the last 19 movies or whatever that he's done are total dog shit, but when he first started out, his first 6 movies were fantastic.
They were better.
He's always going to have that as his, saving grace, is that the first 6 movies that he did were fantastic.
Yeah. That's like Black Sabbath. The first 8 albums were just...
But that reminds me.
Then Heaven and Hell was awesome.
Getting
Mob Rules is okay.
Right. Getting back to name dropping.
Name dropping.
Yes, that's kind of so I pulled up my phone list here of things we've already talked about. Joe Rogan, Tim Pool.
Tim Pool, yeah.
Jack Fraggs is like the 3rd on my list here. The 4th is have you guys ever heard of Officer Tatum?
Yes.
The Tatum Report.
Officer Tatum.
He's fantastic.
Harris Jr.
And then I also have the next one on my list after him is PragerU.
Prager. I listened to Prager.
I like his.
I listen to his fireside chats.
Yeah, his fireside chats are fantastic.
Yeah. So, for me,
Dennis Prager. Then after that, I have the Rubin Report.
Rubin Report. I
like him.
His voice.
What, is it too feminine for you? I mean, he is gay.
Oh, Rubin. Oh, no. I was thinking of Shapiro.
No, the Shapiro is the...
I was thinking of Shapiro. Shapiro drives me. No, Rubin actually... Yeah, Rubin's not bad.
But
the
next one on my list, in my opinion, this guy is... it's just my opinion that he's the best investigative reporter that we have out there right now, and that's slightly offensive with Eliza Schaefer.
Slightly offensive.
That guy is so brave for doing the shit that he does. He's going to end up killed in the street. You know that, right?
Probably.
Somebody's going to shoot that guy.
I used to watch all of FZD's school stuff, Feng Zhu. So if you want to be a concept artist or just learn some interesting art tips and stuff, he had like 100 videos on there, and you'll hear 100 times fundamentals. Everybody says, "What brush are you using?" Default. Although he says that, but then he picks custom brushes that he's made.
Right.
But because he's doing it digitally, but. Everybody always asks him, well, how do you get good? How do you do this? Learn fundamentals.
Right.
What do you mean? Well, learn how to put a sphere on top of a box and learn how to shade a sphere and a box.
Shading a sphere is really difficult for a lot of people.
Should be, but it's really not. It's really actually quite easy.
Well,
but what is tough is then to turn that into multi-planed, because your head starts becoming part sphere. Now it's got a box. Now it's got a sphere again. Now it's got a cone. Now it's got a box. Now it's got a sphere. And so you have to reapply those over and over and over again. And you'll see in a lot of comics, you'll see very bad coloring when they just treat like the whole head as just one sphere.
Right.
You know, and you'll see that coloring, so it looks very fuzzy, looks very you know.
Right.
When he said Officer Tatum, have you listened to David Harris Jr.?
No.
I listened to him a little bit. I follow him just because.
Is he another ex-cop or what?
No, he was one of those hashtag walk away guys. I think he's might be a preacher from down south, but he's one of those guys. You know, this had the debates last night, and I wish Trump.
I watched the whole damn thing. I listened to the whole damn thing.
I wish Trump would.
I thought it was entertaining as hell, man.
He doesn't use the ammo that he really has, and I don't understand why he doesn't use it. What have you done for the black people? Blah blah blah, and you know what he's done? You know what Obama and Biden did? They invited all the celebrities to the White House and had a party. You know what Trump did? He invited Officer Tatum. He invited David Harris Jr. He invited Candace Owens. He invited a myriad of TBL. What's
ABL?
No, TBL. Something. Logan. He's another one.
Anthony Brown Logan.
Yeah, Anthony Brown. Yeah. ABL. Yeah. He invited him. He invited over 1,000 African Americans to come to the White House to discuss issues. You know, what do you do? What do you do? That's what he did. He invited Steve Harvey and a couple other high-profile celebrities to come and talk about urban housing and what needs to be happening. And those guys got so much harassment and flack for even going.
Right.
You know, it's like, what is he? He's actually sat down and asked and talked. What did you guys do? You had a party. Primal Edge Health. You know, he's a guy who does keto.
Is that for your
and carnivore diet? The keto diet, ketogenic diet.
You were on that for a while.
I was on that.
You want to know one of my favorite new guys that he's new at podcasting, but I mean, I guess you can't call it a podcast because it's actually a web blog or whatever. But he's been one of my favorite martial arts movie stars forever. And I just recently found out that he was doing this web blog, and Scott Adkins has his own web blog now.
Oh.
And it's called The Art of Action, and it's just him interviewing other martial arts action stars. And what's funny is because he dropped one just the other day, and I because I excitedly clicked on it because he's interviewing Steven Seagal.
Oh.
But what it was a teaser. It was a premiere, and it's going to drop later, and it just pissed me off. I'm like, oh my god! But he's had Dolph Lundgren on there. He's had because Scott Adkins has worked with a lot of people. He was in Expendables 2. He was one of the bad guys. So he hasn't had Van Damme on yet, but he's had Philip Ree, who was from Best of the Best. He's had all these great martial arts stars. I mean, you know, if you're a big martial arts nut like me, it's a great thing to watch because you know, all these great movies. And it's funny when they were showing some of the scenes from the upcoming Steven Seagal interview. All of the clips were from the movies that he's done early in his career. Like I said, the first 6 were great. and there weren't any clips from the ones that he did later. Because
oh, really?
the only movie, and unfortunately I have sat through and suffered through all of these ones that he made later in his life, and they all have low budgets and they suck so badly, and sometimes he doesn't even do the action in it himself. He has a stunt double that does all the action, and sometimes the stunt double even does stuff that's not even related to the action. You know?
Oh yeah, that was like yeah.
Because there's a scene where he stands out on a balcony and it's a faraway shot and you can tell it's not even Seagal. Anyway.
That's like The Mandalorian, right?
But there was one movie that he did that I had suffered through all these other crappy movies. It was called Into the Sun. And that was okay.
Into the Sun. The last movie that I watched with him, like actually actively watched, was the one that he did with DMX.
Yeah. That was supposed to be kind of his reboot back into Hollywood.
He did this movie with him.
Yeah, it was called...
It was right at the time when DMX, he just got done doing
the one with Jet Li.
With Jet Li, Romeo Must Die,
right.
Which is a great movie. Man, that was so great.
And it was the same director that did both of them, and I'm trying to remember...
Cradle to the Grave?
Yes. But you know what was also great about that movie?
There's a scene in there. He comes over the top with his 1911.
Right.
Bang, bang, right? But they make the sound of a Mac 10.
Right.
And I was like, what?
Well, what was really funny is one of my other most favorite martial artists plays the bad guy in that. Michael Jai White is the bad guy.
Oh, Michael Jai White, yeah.
And Michael Jai White was one of the first people that Scott Adkins interviewed because they're best friends. I mean, they as far as in the world of martial arts, those guys are it. They are the top of the food chain, in my opinion. Mm. And one of the best movies that I've ever I recommend anybody watches. Boyka. Is it the third one? I think it's the third one that Michael Jai White plays in it. And Michael Jai White plays just a boxer who goes into this prison and has to fight this guy that Scott Adkins, invented called Yuri Boyka, and he's supposed to be the most well-rounded fighter ever, or whatever. And
I haven't seen that one.
Boyka. I mean, all of the Boyka movies are fantastic because it showcases what Scott Adkins can do, and trust me, what he can do is amazing. And but anyway, if you guys ever get a chance to the Art of Action podcast thing that he does, he actually's had there's a guy that I have actually met, and I actually met his father first. God, what the hell's his name? Mark Dacascos.
Mark Dacascos.
He interviewed Mark on there. He's and Mark got to play the bad guy in the last John Wick movie.
John Wick movie. That was great, wasn't he? He was hilarious.
He got the best line in the movie when he just says, "That was a pretty good fight, huh, John?"
That was a pretty good fight, huh, John?
He's all run through and stuff. But it was a great line.
But what made that so good was how he said it.
Right.
He said it like a fanboy.
Yes.
That was a great fight, huh, John? It wasn't. He wasn't like the old sage samurai. He wasn't trying to be cool or had to, it's like Seagal and some guys, some of these guys, they got to keep up that appearance. They got to keep, it's kind of the John Wayne effect. Although I think John was willing to have fun. He was a lot more of a comedian than people thought he was. But he talked about the fact that he built that character. He worked very hard at making who John Wayne was, that guy that you saw on screen. But oh man, that fanboy aspect of that was that's what was hilarious. But if you ever want to watch two Jet Li movies, go watch Romeo Must Die and Kiss of the Dragon. I think that might be one of my favorites.
Kiss of the Dragon is definitely my one of my favorites.
That was a great little flick. And then The One is awesome. They originally had written that movie for The Rock to play.
All
right. But he couldn't do it. Or he passed on it. So then they got Jet to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the podcasts on my YouTube channel, I watch Shmee 150 for cars. I watch Seen Through Glass. These guys talk about hypercars and real expensive cars. Linus Tech Tips for computer stuff. I watch a guy named David Lemon, who's a sculptor, and he'll video himself sculpting. Head-Fi, which is about headphones for listening. Wow. I have my, what most people would call super expensive headphones, but they're really not. In the world of headphones, it's like a,
wow.
It's like a nice Charger or Challenger, you know, souped up. They're not Ferraris or anything like that, but they're really nice. I need to get new pads. It looks like because I haven't taken good enough care of them, but I need new pads for them. I like listening to music. It's funny, I enjoy listening to music, but I just don't listen to it as much as I should. Oh crap! Oh, what did I do?
Nothing. I mean.
Oh, but why is it showing up over there?
You did something. Oh, there it goes.
Oh, there we go. Oh, why is it still showing up? It shouldn't show up over there. That background should not be. I'll just get rid of it. And then, well, I watched this Ellen Brock. She hasn't made anything for a while, but she's an editor. She talks about book editing and how to edit, which has been really interesting. It's helped me out with some writing. Randall Carlson. He's fun to listen to. He's the geologist guy who talks about some stuff.
Yeah, I have him on my list.
Although you can only hear about the Younger Dryas so many times.
Yeah,
but
it does get kind of repetitive.
And then the only other person, well, there's a lot on there, but a lot of them don't do stuff anymore.
Right.
Or but comic books matters. Oh, I just shot ourselves in the foot. But I listen to Zach because it's his editing on a lot of stuff. He talks about what makes a comic exciting to him, and a lot of times that's exactly what made comics exciting to me when I was reading comics as a kid. And he's kind of made me remember that sometimes it's about the fun of comics. It's about the medium of comics, that comics are its own medium, and sometimes I get a little too filmy with my comics. And it was a compliment that I was getting, and everybody says, I like your stuff because it reminds me of watching a movie. And it's like, well, then I think I'm doing good. But at times, there's times in comic books where you just do some ridiculous thing because it looks awesome and it's a comic book, and that's the reason you get to do it, because they can't make it look that cool in live action. They've tried, they still can't do it as awesome as Deadpool is, as awesome as the X-Men movies are, Spider-Man movies, name it all. But there has not been one that fight scene in Into the Spider-Verse with Spider-Man against the Hobgoblin, against Green Goblin. Wow, that was amazing. I sat there with the biggest smile saying, that's a freaking comic book.
Mm-hmm.
That's a comic book coming to life. There's no way to make those actors really feel like they're interacting with a 40-foot guy like that. And they try, and you just know that's some CG character. You kind of get taken out of it, and blah, 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 blah. But man, Into the Spider-Verse, it was like, for the love of all that was holy and special, give those guys the classic X-Men characters and say, go to town. Give me an uncanny X-Men back with Storm, Rogue, Wolverine, Cyclops, Jean Grey, Colossus.
Beast.
I don't know if I need Beast. He's never been one of my favorites, but Colossus.
My favorite.
I like Longshot on there. He was kind of fun. But let them just go at it. Oh, Psylocke.
Mm-hmm.
Let them just go at it and make me... I want to see a real fastball special.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see Wolverine run, jump up in the Colossus's hand, and him just send those claws at somebody, you know? And I think those guys could do it. I think those guys could make that cartoon magical. In fact, let them just make cartoons. Can you imagine what their Daredevil movie would have been like?
Yeah.
With the Kingpin like that, and then their Daredevil would have been freaking awesome. That would have been so cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, Into the Spider-Verse, it's definitely the best animation I've ever seen.
It might not have been my favorite, like, Spider-Man movie. I still think maybe the first one with Tobey Maguire was pretty doggone good Spider-Man-ish.
It's funny because in that 3-movie series that Sam Raimi did with Maguire, my favorite was the second one.
The second one?
Mm-hmm.
Second one's still good.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, like I said, I think Spider-Man-ish?
And the third one sucked ass.
Spider-Man-ish might have been better than Into the Spider-Verse. But just, that was a comic book that came to life.
Right.
And that was everything that my childhood brain had ever wanted to see as a cartoon. And I love my cartoons. We talk about getting movies done of our stories, and I almost at times would rather see them animated than live action.
I'll take either.
I know he'd take either because he wants to see it just done.
Right.
But there's times when you can just do something in animation. I mean, they're getting better at it with all the computer graphics, but you can suspend belief better.
One of the things
you just let your brain go with the animation.
One of the things that I'd love to see if it ever turned into animation, whether it's Shattered Time or Town Called Liberty, because I always thought that Town Called Liberty would be neat as an animation also. But what I would love to see is, because the original artist sets the style, and I would just love to see other artists working in Bruce's style. That'd be kind of cool to have them trying to do panels for the animation. That'd be neat. Wouldn't that be just kind of a kick in the ass to have somebody else working in your style? Mm-hmm. That'd be neat.
I guess, yeah. Never thought of it that way.
Because
I guess I have a style. They told me I had a style at work, at school, like they could tell that was my work.
Right.
And it's funny because I've tried to switch my style many times to get more mainstream.
You have.
But it always goes core back to something specific. Like I've tried to make it more cartoony at times because cartoony will go faster.
Right. A Town Called Liberty is more cartoony.
But I always regress back. It seems like the better stuff I do, well, for me, feels more realistically looking.
Mm-hmm.
But I often feel like I'm shooting myself in the foot because I get more done if I went a little more cartoony. But it is, I'm not an animator, and animators are fascinating. Mel Milton, if you ever watch his YouTube channel, draw it like Moana, there you go. Draw it like The Rescuers, there you go. Draw it like this, like Hanna-Barbera, boom. Draw it like Bugs Bunny, boom. He can just switch his style,
mm-hmm.
and it all looks freaking amazing. And me, I have to look and then apply it. You know what I mean? But he can just switch styles so fast on the fly, and he's always drawing something. It's like, how do you do that? I don't understand how you do that. And my best work always comes back to this. You know what I mean? Always comes back to a more realistic look. Or anything that I'm actually happy with. Or happier with. I try to skirt it. I try to, like, there's that picture that I did with Lucius on my Instagram where he's doing the wind thing
Mm-hmm.
with the werewolf thing. And I feel like his face is a lot more realistic, but I tried to make his body and some of the other stuff more cartoony-ish, more looser. So I tried to do that. I think it works at times.
Yeah. Good. That would be pretty fun, you know, to see somebody else, you know, having to.
Mm. See, I think
that's what animators have to do.
Yeah. Yeah, that you know, they get hired on to work on a job, and it's like, well, here's the style that we've created. Now animate that. It's like I think that's half the reason I didn't go into animation. The other half is just the tediousness of ever seeing something finished. You know.
Right.
40 drawings for 5 seconds. It's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
There's a guy I watch. Here's another, Aaron Blaze. Go watch Aaron Blaze. He'll animate. He'll sit there and in 2 hours he'll animate a gesture. And he talks about how he'll do the keys, and then he goes and has to do the in-betweens to make it flow. And man, it's a lot of work. But he's so proficient at it. He's so good. I think he did Mufasa. And he did, I know he did The Beast from Beauty and the Beast. Maybe he did Simba. I don't know. I know he worked on Lion King, and I know he did The Beast from Beauty and the Beast. And he's done several others. But you can watch him draw, and he is just Super Annie. You go watch him. You probably have seen one of his videos, didn't know about it. He's a Korean guy that just starts drawing, and he'll draw these elaborate scenes. They're all like with fisheye lens and all skewed, and he just got like he'll put he draws a scene of traffic. And all these different people in cars and people on bikes and on scooters and, 3-4 people on it, and just this elaborate scenes and stuff. And draws them really big, but he just starts in ink and just goes. No prep, no nothing, just I don't know how he does that. His brain works on a whole nother level.
Right.
But yeah, no, I think a lot of the stuff that I got into were trying to educational. I try to learn about things, and so that's what most of the podcasts. I tried listening to some history ones, and they were.
Try the geographics and biographics.
It was a little too history. There's this one guy that Rogan had on his show where he has like these 6-hour lecture thingies on, but man, they were just too boring. There's this one show, I don't know what the name of it was, but this guy has found instances where it's like this samurai, they went to San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
This group, this delegation, it was like the very first delegation that went to San Francisco, and it's one of the second or third retainers down the line. He writes his account of seeing America and interacting with Americans in their own habitat for the first time, and it's like he talks about them dancing and how they were all having to hold in from laughing. They thought it was just the funniest thing they've ever seen.
Nice.
People out dancing.
Right.
And it was just, he's like the decadence of being able to go and get anything you want. It's just all right out there. And
Right.
it was just, it was fascinating. He has a couple of different ones like that, you know, from somebody from one place going to another place, and then you read the journal about your experience there. That was kind of cool. I can't remember the name of it though. Off the top of my head.
Right.
And it'd be too far down my history. I don't even know if it'd even be in the history anymore of my YouTube channel, because I watch way too many car shows on RC cars these days.
Well, yeah. It's kind of funny how, you can jump around from one thing to the next.
Oh, the rabbit hole. Like I said, you want to have fun, you start on like Rogan, and he has Randall Carlson on, and you're like, huh? And you go down rabbit hole with him. You go do some Graham Hancock, go to some Globeki Tepe stuff,
Right.
and then all of a sudden you're looking at other stuff. And now you're a little flat Earth stuff, and you're like, oh, that's kind of weird. And then you're off to. He just goes, and you just go and go and go, and then you get on the. There's this Nikola Tesla, the ghost of Nikola Tesla, and he goes off on some astronomical astrology stuff and about the precession and blah 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 and what it all means, and how if Carlson and people like that, he doesn't cite them, but what he's saying though is that those guys have been noticing like extinction event things that have happened over and over again.
Right.
And they're like, maybe the only reason why civilization hasn't gotten to where we are now is because we've gone so long without an extinction event.
Right.
And
but there's also,
if this is when this happened, and if this is when this happened due to geological records, blah blah, they're starting to find blah 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 blah. He's saying, if you go by the 25,000 year progression of the equinoxes, you know, blah 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 blah. He's like, 80% of the stuff that's happened has happened here and here, and that's I think Taurus and Aquarius, and we are now moving into Aquarius, or we have entered Aquarius. So he's saying the likelihood that something would happen now is higher because of what's happened in the past, you know, blah 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 blah. And you just go on these wild, crazy things, and it's fun.
Yeah,
I enjoy it. I mean, you don't have to believe it. You don't have to make it religion. You don't have to make it anything. You can just enjoy it. You can just enjoy it for the entertainment that it can be. Let it be fiction. Let it be like a what if story, like a Twilight episode, you know, Twilight Zone. Let it just be what if, and
yeah,
you can You can look at stuff without having to be on one side or the other anymore. You got to get away from that mentality, because it makes it hard. Even if you don't have that mentality, you get to the point where you can't even watch people because they have that mentality, or they get so skewed that you just stop. You know what I mean? It's kind of like what happened with Rogan to me. I just kind of stopped. He got. I'm just a little more sensitive to some of that stuff than other people are, and so.
Well, I know what you mean, because like
I just kind of stopped with him. He sat there and went after Crowder about marijuana and blah blah blah, and he has people like Graham Hancock on, and they talk about DMT and everything, and he talks about religion, how crazy but he talks about how he's met a lot of religious people. They're actually really nice people, and that, blah 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 blah. But you can't. I don't know. I'm gonna give myself a joke. You can't tell me how crazy people are about religion, and then sit like you're a kid in school, in Sunday school, when somebody talks about is over there talking about the teacher plant. Because I guarantee you 20 years ago he would have done 20 minutes on his stand-up about some guy saying that he smoked a twig and the world was opened up to him. And you're telling me that I have to change my life because you smoked a stick?
Right.
And the stick talked to you? You know what I mean?
Right.
But he sat there, attent, up. Everything was out, forward, His whole body language was like, speak, yes, I'm... it was just like... So, his objectivity's a little skewed when it comes to that stuff. And I understand,
Name a person that's not.
Like I said, right. Mm-hmm. It's just... be consistent sometimes about some of that stuff. And that's... I guess that's where I get a little at times, Me and him don't always agree on everything, but he's at least consistent about it, and so I can respect that. You can respect consistency.
Right.
Anybody can respect consistency. It's when you flip and flop,
Well, yeah, but I think everybody should be able to change their mind. Like you were talking about, Glenn Beck is kind of...
Well, yeah, you should be able to change your mind. You shouldn't, but...
Right.
But change your mind because it's convenient.
Right.
And then you watch something a couple shows later and he's right back. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I said, I haven't watched them in a lot. I watch clips, so I'll add the JRE clips. And so if something comes up that looks clippy,
right,
I'll watch that.
Yeah.
But other than that, though, because there was a while there when I was really onto it. Because I got watching them because of the Randall Carlson and the Graham Hancock stuff. I went down that hole, and I don't know if I saw them on him first or them first and then saw it on Rogan.
No, I saw them on Rogan first.
I can't remember, because
that stuff was, out of everything all the people that he's ever had on there, I still find them the most fascinating.
Because
Hancock and what the hell's that other guy's name?
Well, there was Randall Carlson, Graham Hancock,
that's right.
And then David Shock, which was the Sphinx guy.
Right.
But a lot of that comes from, if you ever watch the old thing called Zeitgeist,
Yeah.
And a lot of that stuff, it all proves it wrong. It only proves it unless you don't think it all came like this.
Right.
So here's a top truth. They got splintered, they got splintered, they got splintered, they got splintered, they got splintered. Mm-hmm. And even in the Bible it talks about, like Moses, they call him, there's a character way in called Elias. And Elias was specifically born to show people around that is what the Messiah will be like. He's not the Messiah, but he'll be like that. And so then there's these characters throughout the Bible that are Eliases. Moses is an Elias.
Right.
Isaiah, some of these characters. And so when they, in the zeitgeist, when they kept on saying, oh, well, this happened here, well that could be an Elias. But is that stuff fascinating?
My question
yes,
is,
it's fascinating.
what's really funny though is, what's really kind of cool, I guess, is one of the video games that I play is Assassin's Creed. Just choose one. I mean, I've played almost every one of them, but right now I'm replaying the third one. But the whole game is based on the fact, or what they're saying is that there was this high, a technologically advanced civilization that came before us, and then that was wiped out from a cataclysmic event, which is exactly what Graham Hancock and because they talk about Göbekli Tepe and all the evidence that shows that there was something that was there was a cataclysmic event that wiped out life on the earth, and it does make you question how far advanced was that group of people. How far did they advance?
I know,
because there's very little written evidence. There's carved in stone evidence, but there's very little written evidence.
Well, there's carved in stone, but that could be carved
right
thousands of years later.
But we're so far advanced in technology that we've kind of gotten away from paper.
Well, yeah.
If a cataclysmic event happened right now and wiped out buildings and everything and destroyed people, where's the evidence that we were even here?
Right.
If somebody found a thumb drive,
well, it's like that movie Time Machine.
they wouldn't even know what the fuck a thumb drive is.
So that movie Time Machine, he goes into the future, and everything's been destroyed, and there's people living on the side of the caves,
right,
on the side of the rock caves. He goes and finds the Library of Congress, and he's like, librarian? And the computer sparks to life. So they had all the information that they needed to reboot humanity at their fingertips, but they didn't know how to talk to a computer. Right. But yeah, it's a fascinating thing, and what really is mind-boggling to me with Göbekli Tepe, with the mega stones, because you really, when you start looking at some of these megalithic stones,
right,
that how did they move them? We can't move them today. How did they cut them? Well, we kind of seen how they cut them, but we don't know how they moved them. Right. How they placed them. There was a picture on my Instagram that showed this guy standing, and they showed this one block on the side of the wall that's just, it's like as if they took an obelisk and laid it on its side, and that was in a stone wall. And it's like, well, how did he get that there? But then at a Göbekli Tepe, the only thing that how come the stones aren't squared off better? That's the only, and the circle, now, you can look at the circle at Stonehenge, and it's really nice, and it's symmetrical, blah, blah. But at Göbekli Tepe, those the circles, where all the little, they're all kind of cockeyed. They're not like, I don't understand. There's this half stuff where everything's lined up, where everything's,
right,
but then it's not made perfect.
I don't go back to Tepe. The thing that's fascinating to me is not the site itself; it's the evidence that they found for that cataclysmic event. The diamond stuff and the
Well, it's not so much that; it's that one stela
that just proves there was an impact.
That one T, and it shows those animals on it, and you're like, oh, so there's some animals. Well, Randall Carlson, Graham Hancock, and then there's this other guy that goes and puts tours on. I don't know his name, but he's really actually knows most about it over those two. But they're saying, no, those are constellations. And you're like, what? No, those are constellations. So this is, it's blah, blah, the two birds. That's Lyra. It's not, but it's, I can't remember. I think it's Lyra, which is the crane or something like that. And you start realizing, okay, and so what they're showing you is, if you look at those constellations in that thing, you have to run our history back, because you can do that with the star maps, and you start going and go, when those three were in that exact spot was 25,000 years ago.
Right.
So people that's what they were seeing in the stars. They put it there, and now this site is covered, or something happened to make this. So, wait, 25,000 years, now we're seeing that there was this young Astraeus impact in North America that maybe happened, well, it looks like about 25,000 years ago. Right. So that means this site had to existed at that time. And you just look, and all you see is animals carved on it, so you don't think it's anything. But those are constant, and it's like, holy crap. So they say they've uncovered 1/5 of Göbekli Tepe, and they won't let us into the rest of it. But it's like, and I'm going to get churchy here and stuff like this, but in the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, which is Mormon stuff, but Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints stuff, but when Joseph Smith got the plates, supposedly a third of it was sealed, which means he wasn't allowed to get into it. He was only allowed to do 2/3 of the book. He wasn't allowed to actually get into, because it keeps telling us that you're not ready for that information. There's information in there that you're not allowed to have. And it's just kind of fascinating. It's like there's all this information, like at Göbekli Tepe. So if that happened, what else is in there that tell us about things, Because you start looking at stuff like that, with the little handbag thing, right? And then you start seeing where the handbag is around the rest of the world, and how this culture had been all linked together. And it's like, well, how does that all start explaining the imagery of these certain individuals, and why this big, that big? We understand that through art during the Dark Ages, the reason why somebody was big and somebody was small, because they were important. They weren't important. It wasn't because they were giants and they were small people, It wasn't so much that the aliens came and gave technology to the little humans, or whatever. But that's what we did through the Dark Ages, to show hierarchy. That doesn't mean that that's not exactly what those were. That those are actually giants, because it talks about giants in the Bible in the beginning, that there were, mighty men and blah, blah, blah. But I love that stuff. I can sit and listen and watch that stuff for hours. And you just don't get enough. I really wanted to go, because he had that David Anthony West, that guy who was going over to Egypt. I wanted to go on one of his tours so badly.
I would like to go visit there.
I was so sad that he passed away from cancer.
I'd like to go visit there, period. I mean,
I would like to too, but I would like to.
I've only been out of this country 4 times, and it was all to go to South Korea.
I've never been out of the country, but I would love to go there, because I would like to be able to look at hieroglyphs and be able to see what I believe is ancient and what, because nothing, you get into the inner chambers of the pyramids, and there's no carvings.
Right.
There's nothing on those walls in the king's chamber, in the queen's chamber, supposedly where you would think there would be all types of information to help them when they wake up. And here's the this is what happened, blah, 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 blah. But it's all in the hallways where everybody has found centuries and centuries before, you know. So it's like, did the Egyptians really create the pyramids? I don't think so. I think what Graham and them were talking about with the Sphinx, as old as it is, I think it pairs to the pyramids. Could even be older, but I don't know.
I say it is.
And what the actual head is, that head is so tiny, and you would think that somebody would try to make themselves look better by putting on a human head on it instead of the actual animal head. Because if it was 2000, I think that was Leo would be hitting at 25,000 years. Leo was the summer equinox, summer solstice. So it was, so the sun would land right on his head like a crown every night, and then it's come up or rise up, one of the two.
But I mean,
and then what was the real size of it? Because the real size of it, and as corny as Indiana Jones is with putting the staff in the right exact spot, you know, that all had to play too. You know, we're just seeing it where we think the head is, where the actual head is. Where did that match up with? You know, with
constellation.
Did that when the sun hit it, and you look through it, whatever, and you look through the top of the Giza, does that aim at a specific star that says home, or you know what I mean, type thing? Is it? I love that stuff. That, and you can be religious and still enjoy that stuff. I don't understand why you can't.
Right.
I mean,
because once again, I mean, it's just like just because it, this new evidence contradicts, something, doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. Because, like I said before, if your understanding is it all came from here, then there's a pyramid on top of that, and there's a pyramid on top of that, and there's a pyramid on top of that. Meaning, if it came to a head here, then you would imagine that it branched from something else, and it came from something, So your history continues throughout the stars. I probably sound like a crazed wacko now,
but yeah, I mean it's.
But if you're LDS, then you understand that there's a belief that it didn't just happen here; it's happened multiple places throughout the universe, and so because of that, it's, well, like I said, it keeps going on. Where that beginning happened, nobody knows, and you shouldn't try to know, because your brain will go poof. There are some things, our brains are amazing. You listen to Randall, and you listen to some of those evolutionary biologists that he has on there, like Jordan Peterson was great. They talk about the fact that our brain is so amazing that it's like, there's a tiger, there's a snake over here, there's spiders over there. Hey, let's just sit down and cook a hot dog and eat it and just enjoy it. You know what I mean? Your brain's able to be like, I know that stuff's out there. Let's just not forget about it right now and just enjoy what we're having, because if you do, your brain will pop.
Right.
So there's that stuff. You can go, dabble in it, look into it. But if you dwell on it, you will pop. If you dwell on anything like that, it just pops. So.
Yeah.
But if you're not looking, you're not having fun. I don't understand people that,
I think sometimes we should just call this show Tangent.
Tangent? We probably should, huh? Just a little bit of everything.
Well, yeah.
Well, but that was all podcast related, because that's all stuff that I've learned off podcasts.
Oh, yeah.
I mean
all of this stuff has to do with storytelling.
And I have to admit, because I'm not going to go, I'm a very slow reader, so to go find it all in books is...
They have audiobooks.
It's not going to happen. And even with audiobooks, once again, the only few audiobooks I really listened to is back when I was doing the pages for Shattered Time, just on my own, without streaming. And I was able to sit down and just go, and I could put on an audio book, and I could just listen to it while I was drawing. And that was great. I listened to Atlas Shrugged that way. I listened to the 7th book for Harry Potter, 7th, 6th. I even listened to a couple Star Wars books that way. But no, but when you don't have stuff, and then like I was streaming Shattered Time on Twitch, I couldn't host that stuff. In fact, I just got a notification last week last week that one of my videos on YouTube's been taken down because of copyright, because I played somebody's music on it. So somebody actually watched the video for the first time, and then it got canceled. I think it's because I played Juno Reactor.
Oh, that's funny.
I had to have not real music, but not all free music is good. Most isn't.
Right.
And so I was like, I'm tired of the free stuff. I need proper music. Mm-hmm. Like there's one I knew was going to get struck because I played Black Sabbath through it, Juno Reactor, but I needed something. I needed more stuff that was enjoyable to listen to. Some of those podcast streams, I went and found old radio shows from like the 40s and 50s. It was like science fiction show.
Oh yeah, those are cool.
It was really great, and I played that in the background, and that was fun to listen to.
Oh yeah.
Talking about robots. Robots instead of robots. Robots.
Right.
And here's some oh, it's just funny.
Yeah.
But it was good. Listen to what they thought was menacing at the time. Technology.
Oh,
Scary,
yeah.
scary, scary, scary.
I mean, I still stand by that very first line in my book. People often believe it's technology that will destroy the world. It's true.
It's true. Even Elon Musk believes that.
Yep. Anyway.
Tells us every day not to.
So did we drop everybody's name that we needed to drop?
I think so. I can't think of anybody else really that.
I thought that was a kind of a fun.
I'm sure there's more. And there's people on there that I didn't talk about. Proco, if you're into art, Proco. Mel Melton has a few videos that were really good.
I looked up
David Lemon.
one of the guys that I've always thought was cool to listen to was Penn Gillette.
Penn Gillette.
He does have a podcast called Penn Sunday School.
Yeah, he had a
he hasn't
podcast for a long time.
He hasn't done anything on it for a little bit.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that I can appreciate about Tim Pool. He will go every day.
He will.
So will Crowder.
Right, Crowder. Yeah.
ABL does it every day.
I listen to a lot of people, but...
Oh, I've almost forgot about this. Another thing that...
I was listening to Amazing Lucas for a while, but I think he went off the rails.
I can find it. There it is. Another guy that's really fun to listen... he doesn't actually say much, because his video channel is really specific. And it's funny because I got into not really an argument, but I was reading a thread on Facebook, and the two people were talking about the whole defund the police thing, and this one guy's argument was, that he's never needed the police in his life. Mm-hmm. That nothing's ever happened in his life that he would ever need this or that, and he believes that he could take care of anything that happened anyway. And I'm thinking to myself, well, that sounds pretty naive. But instead of just going on the attack like that and calling him, naive and saying, and trying to hit him with statistics, is there's this one YouTube channel called Active Self-Protection, and all this is it's this guy who runs this business called Active Self-Protection. He teaches, firearms courses and stuff like that. But on his channel, what he does is there's all these videos from store surveillance, cop badge cams, all these different things, and it's and he watches the video, and then he tells the lesson of what you should learn from that video of where he should have been standing, or where he should have done this, he should have done that type of thing. And it's really cool because he has thousands of videos.
You might like Warrior Poet Society.
Oh yeah, Warrior Poet's good too. But this one,
and
seeing actual armed robberies and all these things that are going on, it kind of shoots that argument out of the water about I don't think I'd ever really need a cop, and there's not all this stuff happening anyway, blah 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 blah. No, it happens all the time. And now that we live in a country that has all these cameras everywhere, it's captured on film all of the time. You are kidding yourself if you think that it's not going to happen to you, because it has happened to me. It was when I was living in California. I feel a lot more comfortable here in Utah, but when I was in California, I was a victim of a carjacking. I was a witness of several different shootings. It's just crazy. Drive-by shootings, brothers shooting each other, you name it. I've seen it all in Sacramento.
You might like Mike Ritland's podcast that he does. He's an ex-Navy SEAL that was worked with dogs. So he was a canine guy with Navy SEALs, and he trains pooches now. But he'll often have operators on, and they talk about their experiences and what got them and why they wanted to go into be an operator and things like that. And it's pretty good. He's no nonsense. He's no he talks like a SEAL. Talks like a
Well, what's funny to me is there's a
kind of like walk.
There's one podcast
What's his name?
that I subscribe to that I thought for sure I would love it.
Wilco? Can't remember that. Navy SEALs Gate. Yeah.
But I thought for sure that I'd love it because, first of all, it's the guys that make Black Rifle Coffee.
Oh, yeah.
And they have this podcast called Free Range American. And it's like 4 or 5 of the guys. And it's funny because when I actually ran a movie, or helped to run a movie theater called Broovies in Salt Lake. And these guys that run Black Rifle Coffee, they actually made a zombie movie, with all of these military members, So it was really kind of cool to, watch these guys who knew how to, take people out, taking out all these zombies and stuff. But anyway, and they're funny and everything, all of those guys from that movie. And so it's these same guys that are doing this podcast, and I don't know what it is. I think it might be because there's too many voices in the room, but I don't know if I can say that I love their podcast or not. They'll have a guest on, and I don't know. It's just not as entertaining as 2 voices versus 6 voices. That's one of the things that I don't like about Crowder. It's because Steven Crowder, I can listen to him talk, and he's fairly entertaining by himself. But if you ever watch his podcast or his show, like the Good Morning Coffee thing or whatever it's called, he has 6 guys that are there all the time, and they're all talking over each other, and I don't like it.
what, I think the reason I like Joe, the reason I enjoy Jordan Peterson, and the reason I enjoy most of the podcasts that I do listen to is because they just talk normally.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it is about Shapiro, Crowder. They have to talk as fast as they can to get as much information out of them, and oh my gosh, I get tired listening to them.
Yeah.
And both of them, I get, Crowder talks in such a way that I just get, it's not his content that bugs me, it's actually, I get tired of listening to him. And there's a couple people like that I just get tired of listening to, and that's the reason I don't go back. I just, it's just,
because I've seen Crowder as a stand-up comedian. I mean, I've seen him actually, do stand-up, and he's funny, and he's articulate, and he's well-spoken and stuff. And so I don't understand.
I watched the Hodge twins.
Yeah, Hodge twins are great, by the way.
Those two guys. Yeah.
Anyway,
those guys just crack you up, man.
But the Crowder, I sometimes wish, and I don't know. I mean, I understand that he has friends and stuff, but I sometimes wish he was the lone voice on his show, or maybe just one other guy. Because I thought it was great when Tim Pool had that one other guy on there.
Adam.
Yeah.
It was much better with Adam. I don't enjoy the new guy as much. And then he had this girl on. I don't mind.
Girl's always there.
I don't mind Sour Patch. I don't mind her. I wish she would speak. I wish they would just do more together.
Right.
But this other girl he's had on there, I could do without her, and I can do without the other little guy.
But as far as Shapiro, I like Shapiro. And I know he talks fast, but that's because that's the way he talks.
Well, I know, but that doesn't mean it doesn't make me tired to listen to him, and it just,
right.
He's
like the Micro Machine Man.
Yeah, and you know what usually people talk like that for? And I understand he created it so he can get as much information out on TV as possible. Right. Not only that, but it's harder to edit him when he talks like that, because you can see a hard edit. And I understand why he does it. It's very calculated. And but it also, people talk like that when they don't want you to be able to say anything to rebut their side of it. They'll talk over you and talk as fast as they can, get as much information out so you don't have a chance to talk. And that's hiding stuff. And so it shows, it opens to me their character a little bit. And it's the same thing like I was saying with Glenn Beck earlier. He's almost to the point where he's so polished that you can't tell when he's being a showman or is being truthful about it. Right. Because are you being a showman and just trying to hyper radicalize people or hype them up because you can talk in such a way and it's very controlled and it's very elaborate and special and sometimes just talk to me like you're sitting across from me, and you'll find that more people are willing to go along with you, along with the ride. They want to have that conversation, even if it's third party. Listen on the, I don't know about Marty, but growing up, me and my friends, we used to just love sitting on the side. We go scouting and go on campouts, and we would just sit and listen to my dad and the other dads talk about this type of stuff. And just being able to sit and listen to them, I don't know, how would you say it, prognosticate, pontificate. Well, yeah, it's all, you use the religious words about it, but in a sense, it's what they were doing, they're giving their knowledge and understanding of these subjects, and we used to just sit and soak it up and enjoy it. And so people will do it, but it has to be authentic. I think Tim's right when he says the internet that Trump's like the internet's candidate, and
Yeah.
all I had to do was watch the debate last night, and afterwards watch it on ABC, and then right after it, they had their panel
Yes.
just start obliterating. And it was
Right.
only obliterating. The only person that spoke some truth to it, and he criticized both, was Ted Cruz. He said that Trump was, he just spent too much time butting in, cutting in, too much time being on the attack, But the other people just didn't say anything bad about Biden at all.
Nope.
It was just pro thing, bad Trump,
Yep.
But I wake up today and I go on the YouTube, on internet, and there it is, all these people. Trump did pretty good. Trump was really good.
Mm-hmm.
Blah, 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 blah. And it's just like, why? Because those are just people looked at that and some have an agenda today, but most don't.
Well, I think everybody
Most
on
just-
the news has an agenda.
Well, they have an agenda, but even people like, and I have to say, but people like Crowder, Shapiro, they have their audience. They have an agenda.
Yeah.
Whether they want to admit it or not, they have an agenda. Where Tim doesn't have an agenda.
Right.
And it's the reason why so many people are gravitating to him right now. It's because he doesn't have an agenda. It's the reason why so many people gravitated to Jordan Peterson, no matter how much you want to say he was so horrible. If you listen to him talk, even in his lectures, even on he's like, the way I'm talking is if we were having a conversation, and I just want to try to work this out. So he's not telling you, he's like, then there's this idea about it.
What the heck?
Well,
Oh.
hopefully,
That was weird.
usually my screens don't time out. I have them so they don't time out. But he's like, but here's this idea. Well, what about this? And well, what about that? And he's just trying to have this conversation technically with himself about these issues. And I think, that the more people that I have that are just like we talked about, David Harris Jr. on there, more of an agenda. So I don't listen to him that often. ABL, I don't listen to him very often.
Well, the only thing ABL was fine. Yes, he is very conservative. But I'd rather listen to Officer Tatum versus ABL, even though they do a lot of stuff together.
Right.
Mostly because Anthony Brian Logan, I apologize ahead of time, he doesn't have as much of a personality as
he's very
Tatum.
stiff.
Tatum is great. He is somebody that I grew up with in Sacramento and in Oklahoma and all the places that I've lived. He is like the best friend that I've known all my life. ABL, on the other hand, he's that awkward guy sitting in the corner.
No, seriously, I agree, and
Sorry.
I subscribe and I follow them.
I'm sorry, Anthony.
So they have for the support. It's true, and the other problem is sometimes they get rhetoric, and so I'm rhetoric, but I like to, me and my wife have gone off on conversations, and I like to try to, because she'll get like that, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, what about this, and blah, blah. It's like when the riots first started with the protesters, and we're listening to some people talking. It's like, well, sometimes you just got to make a scene loud enough for people to hear you.
Well, the world just heard you.
Finally, the world is starting to hear you. But when you keep the scene going too long,
right.
and that's when people start doing this in the restaurant, like, you're over there yelling,
Right.
and the people are looking away from you, kind of like, can somebody do something about, and So talking with her about that stuff, it was like, well, sometimes you just have to make a a scene, and sometimes you have to slap somebody to wake them up or whatever, you know what I mean, type thing. And it's like, well, okay, I guess, you know. So there's some of that, and so some of that makes sense, and then some of it, then you start getting a little too far, and then like, and now you're just a petulant child screaming on the floor, and somebody needs to sit you up and tell you no. And I thought that very interesting last night. Trump, come on, Joe, say law enforcement, say law and order. He said, say law and order. He said, you can't even say the words, can you? I can say them, then say them. Say law and order. Law. We need laws. Come on, say law and order. Say we need law and order. He never said it.
Right. And that was another thing that I didn't really want to get off on the
right. Well, we don't need to go. I'm just saying.
The debate, but
I'm just saying it's just.
But when you know, I don't know when somebody. I mean, I know that they don't want to play the game because Officer Tatum actually talked about this. You know, because people asked him, why doesn't Trump ever condemn, you know, the white supremacists and stuff? Which
he has
1,000 times.
1,000 times.
And you know, when somebody says that to you, you know, like, why don't you condemn white supremacists? Blah blah blah. Why doesn't he just snap back and go, okay, I condemn white supremacists? Well, just to shut him up.
Well, that was like last night. They said that to him, and he said, I do, and I have. And they said, well, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, he asked them point blank, right, what defines a white supremacist? Right. A radical white supremacist. Tell me. What makes... And he rattled off a couple of people like Proud Boys, and he rolled his eyes at the Proud Boys. Why? Well, when the two co-leaders are, one's an African American guy and the other guy's half Cuban, half American. Right. That doesn't sound like white supremacy to me. Right. You know, and so he asked them, "Tell me what a white supremacist is then. What is your definition of it? And then I will condemn him if it's right." And he has condemned the KKK. He did it on there. He said the KKK is bad. He said Antifa's bad. Right. He said, why don't you say Antifa's bad? Oh, you can't. Right. And it was great. He obliterated. I know most people think that Joe probably won that.
No.
And they all think that Joe won that.
If you listen to
but he got obliterated.
If you listen to the actual TV people, you know, the mainstream media, they say that Joe did well. Mm-hmm. Which is not really true. I think Shapiro said it best, where there was no overall winner.
Right.
I mean,
that's what Ted Cruz said.
He said that there should have been a stomping. You know, but poor, you know, because he wasn't just debating Joe. He was debating Joe and the moderator.
Right. But unlike most moderators, that guy actually was going after Joe. And if Trump would have just let him go after him, he would have done the job just fine. In some instances, there was times when it was like, look, let him go after him, and then if he doesn't do it right, then bash him up. But he went after Joe on quite a few things that Trump kept on interrupting on. It was like, let him tie his own noose. Right. Let him do it. He's gonna do it because you know. And there was times when, you know, when Joe looked right in the camera and blah 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 blah, and then Trump went on. You know, all he really needs to say is, it's the same thing you've said for 47 years. Rhetoric. He asked you for a plan, for a specific action, and all you said was rhetoric. What's your plan? Right. That's all he has to do. Answer the question. Well, we're going to, not rhetoric, plan. What is it, Joe? Mm-hmm. That's how he should have hammered him. Right. And I don't understand why he plays the game the other way, because...
Well, see, this is the thing that, you know...
He's got to up his own ego.
I don't want debates to be moderated by a media figure anymore. My opinion is that it should be an actual court judge as a moderator for these debates.
A Supreme Court judge? Or just any court judge?
Not necessarily Supreme Court, but, you know, a court judge, just so they can say stuff like, you're a fucking idiot. You haven't answered the question. Because one of the things that I hate about debates is, you know, they're all timed, and they hear a question and then they answer the question that they want to answer, not the question that was asked. And that's a common political tool that they use. So they'll answer this question instead of that question, just to hear a judge go, "You didn't answer the question." Would be great. It would be a breath of fresh air. Everybody on the planet would go, "Ah, thank God. Somebody asked him again."
Right.
You know?
Clink, clink, bang, 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 bang,
and
bang.
then to have, if the guy did it again, just answer the question that he wanted to a second time, just to have the guy, the moderator, to have the power to say, if you don't answer the question,
take the time away.
Then we're going to that there should be consequences for not answering these questions.
Right.
You know, it's just anyway.
No,
that would be my opinion of how who the moderator should be.
None of them would enter that debate.
Why? I think they would.
Well, hopefully.
Because, I mean...
that would be good. I mean...
Both of these guys have the egos the size of this house. They don't want to be wrong.
Yeah.
They don't want to look bad. But, yeah.
So go find some podcasts on it. If you really want to enjoy one, I know this is going to sound horrible, but #WalkAway. That's a great channel. It's fun to listen to some of those guys kind of wake up and start seeing things in a different light, you know. I think that's where I found David Harris Jr. was off of that. And from that, I got ABL, and from that, I got like Amazing Lucas and
neither one of us mentioned
some other
Candace
people.
Owens. So I think we both listened
Candace.
to her.
Well, I mentioned her a lot earlier without referencing her name.
Right.
She was the person that Joe went after about the climate change.
Right.
Candace Owens, Coleon Noir, Kim.
I like Coleon.
The stuff that he's done with the NRA, his channel. You know, he went and did. He went to Seattle and walked around because he heard there was this drug problem up there with heroin, and how the city has to come in before tourism starts and sweep up needles.
That's gross.
And he was like, "Come on, that doesn't happen." So you had to go and watch it, and it's the grossest thing, and it's ridiculous. It really is. It's. You know, Coleon Noir is a good site.
But yeah, I mean, you've even talked about when you went on your mission about seeing that in the street.
Oh yeah, cracked vials in the street. I've seen police brutality. We heard sirens going like crazy, and we saw them. I could see down through our apartment, like this little sliver of the street, and they caught the guy, black guy, put him down on the ground, sitting on it, you know, knee in the middle of the back, all that stuff, and a white officer standing over above him, looked around, and then kicked the guy straight in the head. You know,
Yeah.
So my call to all that is go apply for the job.
That's a good point.
You know, everybody gripes and complains about police brutality, but if you can do it better, then you need to be doing it. If you're the moral arbiter and you're can do it better, and you say, well, they need more training. Well, bullshit. You go do the job then. You go strap it on. You go talk to wife beaters and child molesters. You go talk to a guy that just molested his child, and you turn to the wife and say, will you press charges so I can take him in? And she says, no. I knew a police officer. He said, you want to know why police officers are eating donuts and coffee all the time? He's all, sometimes, just sometimes, you just spent 3 hours scraping bodies up off the highway. Mm-hmm. Literally scraping them bodies up off the highway. And maybe to get the images out of your brain, you got to go sit at a coffee table and eat a donut. Right. He's all, people just on, he's all, you ever know what the smell of burning flesh smells like? It's a smell you don't want to know. Mm-hmm. He's like, they talk about the 300 million interactions that cops do every year, mm-hmm. to the amount of people who actually have died at the hands of cops in these instances, and the things that they see and do on a daily basis. And then we criticize the few. Well, you know what? Go do their job. Go and talk to your city council and say they need to be on a 3-month rotation, 3 months on, 3 months off. And guess what? I'm going to sign up for the police academy, and I'm going to do the other 3 months that they're off on. Yeah. Because I'm such a good person.
Here's what I think.
3 months on, 3 months off. Let them clear their head, and then go do it for 3 months. Or actually, here's a better. 3 months, 2 months, 2 months, 3 months. Mm-hmm. Right? And they need to step away. They need time to just reconnect with the people in their community and be like, hey, that's a human being. And then they go back to the job and they can treat people as humans. Right. Get just enough of the ick that they got to get out of it. Go detox again. Get back into it. I don't know.
Well, here's what I think. As far as how we should be treating our officers. First of all, definitely don't defund them. But I do think that they need constant training. And what I would think, because I kind of like that whole, like school teachers having a chunk of time off is great. But during that time, I'd like to see them continuing training. And I want in martial arts, and I want it in interacting psychology type stuff. I want it in all of those type of things. And another thing that I'd like is every time an officer is involved in a shooting, they give them time off, which is understandable, because there's a lot of psychological things that go along with watching a person die. Or even taking a person's life. But sometimes I wish, because when I was working with the Sacramento PD, helping train their dogs and stuff, I got to meet a lot of different officers, and there was officers that were, the everyday Joe, the nice guy, great to talk to, but then there was those ones that were kind of the creepy, moody guy that,
stick stuck up their butt.
Well, no, that they were constantly talking about the most morbid shit you could imagine, And it's like, yeah, I understand. You it's a hard job, and you've seen some stuff, but you can't dwell on this and let it take over your world. And what I've noticed was the ones that seemed to have their life together and were able to take things in and keep going. On a normal path. They had a wife, they had kids, they had a home life, they had a life away from the office. And if you don't have those ties to, like you were saying, if you don't have those ties to people, mm-hmm. if you don't have that group of people that you use to decompress at the end of the night, you are going to turn into that moody guy that will end up shooting themselves in the mouth. Because of this horrible depression.
You listen to enough of those operators are the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But they need to have the home structure. They need to have time away, like he was saying. They need to have the time away so they can be a normal part of, society or whatever.
Well, I knew a guy who worked in the prisons.
Prisons suck.
And people just don't understand. He worked for the prison, and they're like, well, why did you stop working at the prison? It's a good job, great benefits, right? He's like, I got tired of seeing people I knew in prison for molestation or for this or for that, and I just got tired of you're with the worst of the worst every day.
Yep.
That stuff drags on you, whether you know it or not. It just drags on you, and then we just turn around and say, oh, they got to be better. Well, you're a shit, and you work at a computer company, and you're a little piece of shit. So what do you think you would be like if you worked around those people all day long? So, I like the training when they're off, but you know what? I think they should be taking psychology classes
all the time,
and doing the martial arts, getting their mind and their body clear. But I don't know about maybe light, but not. I don't want to keep their brains so indoctrinated with the violence, Well,
I don't
put them through situations.
I don't want them to do
like simulations,
a bunch of tactical stuff. I want them to work on the psychology part of it. The reason that I add martial arts in there is, yes, it's a warrior mentality, but just like the other guy, I want them to be warrior poets. I want them to have a good, solid center. I want them to.
You want them to be able to use martial art. You want them to use those before they use deadly force of any other way.
Correct.
That's like warrior poet side. He was talking about the difference between shooters and operators. And I realized that in my state I'm not very good at either, but he was like talking about, can you even wrestle a gun away from somebody, or even get the gun into a safe position to where you can even draw yours.
Right.
And it's like, wow, I don't have the strength for that.
No.
I don't have the training for that. Right. So can a cop do that? Can a cop, as stupid as this sounds, I don't even know if this is even possible. And like I said, I'm not a police officer. I don't have the training, so I probably not. Can you get the point where you got the gun stabilized, you pull your gun, you can stick it in his face and say, stop.
Right.
I saw this one guy's martial arts stuff, and I don't know if it's even possible. He's talking about one guy pointing a gun at you in front, and you're standing in front of him. He grabs the muzzle and the wrist at the same time, and your wrist is so pliable that with enough force, and it hurts so bad. And what he does is he cranks the wrist around so hard that he puts the gun right in your chest.
Right.
And then drives you down to the ground. Now, if you want to pull the trigger, that's your business. But it's, I don't know if that's even possible. It sounds great in theory, and it's great when you're just standing in front, and it's demonstrating, and stuff like that. But those are active concepts that cannot be done before you have to just bam, 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 bam.
Right. But I'd like to see the training to be enough to where these cops in their off time could even compete in, like MMA type events. I want them to be that proficient.
It's hard to do all that with the rig
because all the training in the world ain't worth shit the first time you get hit.
Right. No.
You can get a group of 100 people, and you could ask everybody in the room, has anybody ever been hit in the face? 5 of the people out of the 100 will raise their hand. Yeah, me. I've been hit in the face. And that, because most people have never been in a physical altercation.
Right.
So, I mean, and that should be part of the training. The act of getting hit and how you react, how your body reacts.
Because, well, yeah, like we were talking about, but once again, that's me saying this from this chair and not putting my ass out on the line. So, if I'm not willing to put my ass out there, then I have to be willing to put up with what's happening right now. To an extent, right? We can try all we want, but you know what I mean? You need to put your ass out there. Go do the job. And if you don't get hired on, make a video saying I didn't get hired on or something, but for crying out loud, stop. Go do the job. Go do it.
Yeah. I mean,
it's I don't know. I've known several police officers and
I've known a lot.
They it's definitely not for everybody.
I mean, I like like I said, I like the cops that seem to have a home life and everything like that, because every one of them that doesn't have a family or something to come home to, they all seem to go into that depression mode.
And just not doing the job. Two of the ones I knew, were injured on the job. Injured physically to where they had to take medications like, pain meds and then one was a terror to the family because he was home all the time and he didn't want to be home and then he was medicated, and hurt and it was just like, we have to take better care of them. It's like, I don't know. If I go on this next thing, it'll be another tangent down the hole, and I don't want to go down that tangent.
But yeah, I mean,
it's about the destruction of the English language, and
but yeah, I mean, officers.
This is definitely off a podcast. We're definitely jumped.
Oh well, yeah.
We definitely jumped. We definitely jumped.
I mean, we were,
Well, Officer Tatum and there's some other guys that were some officers and some. I
mean, that seems to be the.
At least the more operators, I guess, more maybe.
It just seems to be what's in the
more
news.
Green Berets.
What's in the news lately is police abuse and which I'm of the opinion that it's the media that's blowing out of proportion, because if you look at the actual statistics of the million or so encounters with officers, that's a very, 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 very tiny percentage.
But and everybody's had an interaction with a cop that made you just shake your head, because this one police officer come and told me I had to move my car off the street. I had to move it. And blah, 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 blah. And he was telling you how, well, there was that. I think that was what it was, isn't it? Because I thought it was that time. But there was another time when some lady was driving down our street and ran into the back of another car.
Ouch.
And then fled the scene.
Oops.
And then the car came back, but a man was driving it. So there's a bunch of us out there. I saw the lady get out, go around, look at her damage of her car, look at damage of the other car, get back in her car and drive away. And apparently she went home and took some drugs, like some Ambien or something like that. And then they couldn't determine whether she did it before or after. The husband copped to doing it. And so they didn't want to take the child out of the home, take the mother away from the child. He was explaining all this stuff. And, he was like, well, if it wasn't for people like that, I wouldn't have a job. And he didn't say it sarcastically. He said it like happy that there's people like out there, so that he can have a job. You know, and it was like, I was like, you were being a pretty cool dude up until that point. What a piece of shit.
Well,
I'd rather you not have your job to do that, because it'd be nice if there weren't people like that in the world that we needed you to have a job to do that. I'd rather you had a job doing something else. But
well, it's funny because
goodness
you
gracious,
were saying everybody has had a run-in with an officer that was, kind of weird or off. But I've never had an encounter like that at a traffic stop or anything like that. Most officers are pretty straightforward. I mean, sure, you'll have the officer that approaches your car with his hand on his gun, but at the same time, I think that's just the world we live in now.
Yeah.
But like I was saying, the officers that I ran into is when I was training to be an officer. The ones that rubbed me the wrong way, luckily they weren't in the car very often. They were most of the time were riding a desk, which is absolutely fine. We need people to ride desks also.
Right where they should be. No, it's right where they should be.
But like I said, every one of them, the thing that I found that they had in common is they didn't have a home life. And I think when an officer has a family and everything and goes through that horrible thing called divorce, I think just like being involved in a shooting, they should be taken off the force and given all kinds of psychological evaluations, because a divorce is really fucking hard and they're going to take that shit to work.
Yeah. Except, there's so much of that military, and the problem is so many guys come out of the military and go in the police department these days. And there's just that attitude of get it squared away. Are you squared away? Get it squared away. Instead of actually working on it, it's like, yeah, I've dealt with it.
No.
I talked with a guy at work once, and I said, well, sometimes divorce is just better all the way around. And he looked at me and goes, what do you mean? I said, well, why would your kids living in a household of you yelling and screaming at each other and fighting would be better than them separated in two loving relationships? They would at least be able to have love both sides, and you two get along, mutually to a degree.
Right.
But it's like, you yelling and screaming and beating at each other or whatever, that doesn't do anybody any good.
Yeah, that's much worse.
That doesn't do does no good. So
that's what cops should be going through.
And the problem with all of that is, because there's always problems, there's always the cop that won't let them out of the relationship, because then, I'm going to lose my job, or I'm going to go on thing, and then it's going to put it in my record, and then you got to make it safe, and it's tough, and I don't. It's so hard. It's so easy to.
Well, I think I know it sounds completely unfair, because nobody else would have to put up with this. I honestly think that cops should be the most open-booked person you could find, meaning that they should have psychiatrists or psychologists constantly reviewing every part of their life and making sure that they're mentally stable, because you don't know what's going to trigger some horrible depression,
Mm-hmm.
And I know nobody wants to live their life with a constant anal probe, but I think that's how deep into an officer's life we need to get.
There's some of that stuff, though. I agree with some of that, but some of that also is on the other person's side of sometimes you just need to cooperate a little bit.
Oh yeah.
And with some people, stop putting your place in the position where they're going to come talk to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no shit.
They say things like, people, if you're just doing the right thing, you wouldn't have the problem. Well, sometimes
you know how many years it's been since I've even been pulled over?
Sometimes it's just you're going to have an interaction.
Right.
It's just going to happen. Well, you can mitigate interactions, and to a degree, and there's sometimes when you can't, and they're going to happen, but there are things you can do to help ease the tension when those things happen. You pull on the tiger's tail, it might turn around and try to bite you. I don't know, like Gabriel Iglesias. Do you like him? Fluffy?
Oh yeah.
He talks about Steve Irwin. Right over there is a 400-pound tiger. Oh, I'm gonna touch it. And rip a man to pieces in 4 seconds, or blah 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 blah. I'm gonna touch it. It's like and Tim just had that one guy on his show, who's saying, a lot of people in the suburbs have different interactions with people in the city, and I agree, and blah blah blah. Your interactions half the time have to deal with what you were doing in the it's like,
right. Well, the thing is, in Sacramento, every time I ever had a dealing with a police officer, it was after some horrible incident already happened.
Mm-hmm.
I worked and lived at a storage place. I ran a place as a manager, and every interaction I had with police was after we had just been ripped off, robbed, and there was times when we actually had people physically try to intimidate us, because we were trying to catch them. We actually had a security gate that we closed and wouldn't let the robbers out of the yard, and they were trying to kick down our back door to come in and open our security gate. So we actually had to pull weapons on them. But yeah, and the interaction we had with the police officers that time was, they told us good job, and then they told us that the perpetrators wanted to press charges against us for brandishing a firearm at them, which isn't a crime, by the way. Because it was our property, not theirs. And so they just thought that was kind of funny. It's ridiculous. But yeah, I can't think of very many bad altercations I've ever had with police. But it's probably because I wasn't stealing anything or hurting anybody.
Like I said, mine was it wasn't so much the altercation. It was just the thing that came out of his mouth. You know what I mean? It was like,
what?
Really? That's what gets you? What? You're happy that there's people like that out there so that you can have a job? I think he was trying to say it sarcastically. Now that I think about it,
maybe.
But it sure didn't come out sarcastically. And it's just what? But all right. Well, that was 3 hours.
Yeah.
2 hours of on topic.
But you never know. Part of the reason, besides the love of podcasts, is maybe we'll get more hits because everybody will hear Brandon Herrera's name or you know, or Matt from Demolition Ranch or
right.
And they'll come check us out, but I don't know. I mean, personally, I'm just a kind of a nut about this stuff now. It's funny how YouTube and you know podcasts and all of this stuff has really taken the place of TV. I don't watch mainstream ABC, CBS, NBC TV at all anymore.
I haven't watched that stuff for a long time. My wife still watches.
I watch Netflix.
My wife still watches some shows, but I don't watch very much of it anymore.
No. I mean,
I can't take it.
There is nothing good enough on TV right now where I go, oh, I gotta watch that. Because one of the things that I've noticed is if there is a show that is that good where you have to watch it, it usually comes to Netflix. You know?
Yeah, even on Netflix, I haven't. We watched the second season of The Umbrella Academy.
That was good. I liked it.
Other than that, I haven't watched anything on Netflix since The Witcher.
The Ranch is a good show, man.
I did watch The Ranch. Oh, did I watch the? I don't know.
If you haven't watched the last season,
I think I watched the last season.
You should. It's really good.
Did I?
I mean, even though the older brother's not there, it was really good.
I think I did watch the last season.
Oh,
it was all right. But
That's
see, it wasn't so good that I can remember.
That's
what happened.
That's a name that I forgot to mention. Dax Shepard is on the last season of The Ranch.
Yeah.
And Dax Shepard has a podcast called Armchair Expert where he interviews a bunch of famous people. That's a really good podcast too.
His wife said one of the stupidest things I ever heard.
Yeah, but she sings real good, so that's okay.
Oh my gosh, she said that maybe Disney movies aren't the best because all they do is teach children to take things from people they shouldn't and to interact with. And it's like, the whole point of fairy tales is to teach children not to do that.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Oh man, you talk about making blood pressure rise. They're stupid, and then there's Chicken of the Sea stupid. And and at least Chicken of the Sea was scripted. At least we know she said that to look like she was dumb.
Yeah.
But trying to say that Disney movies encourage or only to teach you to do that stuff might be about the dumbest thing I've heard in a long time.
It's like, yeah.
But
anyway, but yeah.
Yeah.
Dax Shepard's kind of fun to listen to. Yeah, I can't think of anybody else. I think we went down the line.
I can think of somebody, but I haven't listened to him in a long time, but I won't mention his name. But I haven't watched the show in a long time because he doesn't leave it up anymore. He does it live, and then it's gone. And he only does it over on D Live.
Oh.
But I was listening to Hexam Sticks Hammer 666 whatever here and there. He kind of interesting dude, but some of his stuff.
Well, it's funny.
It's a little late. He gets it a little late, and so it's like, yeah, I heard that.
As far as YouTube channels, there's some people I couldn't really mention because they don't say anything. Because there's one guy who just takes old shit, you know, like a rusted axe that's been buried in the ground for 700 years, and he finds it and he restores it.
Oh.
And like he did just an old not Civil War, but World War II-ish or World War I-ish trench lighter, and it was all rusted to crap.
I like the guy that took old silver dollars and turned them into rings.
Yeah, I've seen that too.
That was pretty cool.
And I like, you know, because one of the things that I've always wanted to get into, and I think I can, because, you know, there's cheap ways to do it. I still need to buy a forge, though. I like watching guys that make knives.
Yeah, Forged and Fire is a fun show.
Mm-hmm.
Fun show. I wouldn't mind that. I thought about that that would be fun to get a ring made from the year you were born.
Yeah.
I thought that'd be cool.
And if you really wanted to make it cool, you'd put your birthstone in it too.
Man, I don't need that.
Yeah, I don't like the color of mine anyway.
Yeah, mine either. Oh yeah, I just don't need. I don't need amethyst. Well, I got ripped, man. An amethyst too, man. Who cares about that?
I can't even remember what mine is.
All right, well, I'm starting to ramble.
So I don't know if we'll ever.
Kevin Talbot, the guy who does RC cars on it, he says wobble, wobble, wobble. Waffle, 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 waffle.
We don't have any sign off, do we?
It usually is a little bit of silence, because we run out of things to say.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Anyway.
Later.